Chapter 4204. Seeing that his secret skill was easily broken by Lu Ming, Fei Ye's face darkened. Let's see how many moves you can take. A cold voice came out of Fei Ye's mouth. Then his body rapidly swelled up. Then a giant tree appeared between heaven and earth. Fei Yi turned into a giant tree. It was extremely huge, more than 1,000,000 feet tall. The tree crown opened up and covered the sky. It was like the legendary world divine tree. This is the primordial divine body? Lu Ming was slightly stunned. It was Lu Ming's first time seeing a plant-type primordial divine body. However, it wasn't strange. Not all primordial divine spirits were flesh and blood. There were also plant-type primordial divine spirits, but they were very rare. Obviously, Fei Yi was either the descendant of a plant-type primordial divine spirit or the primordial divine body that he cultivated was a plant-type primordial divine spirit. The giant tree that Fei Yi turned into was filled with leaves. These leaves were also of various colors and shapes. Then the giant tree shook. Countless leaves on the crown flew up and turned into various attacks, attacking Lu Ming. There were at least tens of thousands of densely packed attacks, covering a large area of the void. The power of these attacks was extremely terrifying. This move is interesting. Lu Ming revealed a faint smile. Then a ray of light emerged from his body and shrouded him. It was one of the 3,000 ancient secret skills, the Great Defense Skill. After Lu Ming used the Great Defense Skill, the attacks formed by the leaves had already landed on Lu Ming. Clang, clang, clang. These attacks landed on the Great Defense Skill and made the sound of metal clashing. Sparks flew and violent explosions were heard. However, none of the attacks could break through the Great Defense Skill's defense. They could only make the Great Defense Skill vibrate slightly. In the blink of an eye, at least tens of thousands of attacks landed on Lu Ming's body. However, it was useless. There was no effect at all. They couldn't break through the defense at all. Fei Ye's face was extremely ugly. How is this possible? How is this possible? Fei Yi roared in his heart. His face was red. He couldn't wait to unleash his God Emperor Realm Cultivation and attack. However, there were so many people watching. If he were to use his God Emperor Realm Cultivation base now, he would lose all his face. He wouldn't be able to survive in the primordial divine lake anymore. Therefore, he could only push his strength to the limit of the deity Emperor Realm, infinitely close to the God Emperor Realm. However, as long as they were in the divine Emperor Realm, even if they were infinitely close to the great God Emperor Realm, they were still divine emperors. The difference between them and the great God Emperor Realm was too great to affect Lu Ming. Around them, the spectators also widened their eyes and stared fixedly. What a terrifying defense. Looks like the flying leaf can't break his defense at all. His strength is unfathomable. I wonder how strong he is. Indeed. The surrounding people discussed animatedly. They were once again shocked by Lu Ming's strength. Based on the strength of the Divine Emperor layer, this man can fight someone who is 6.5 levels higher than him. Lu Ming speculated in his heart. In the Divine Emperor realm, being able to fight someone who is 6.5 levels higher than him was already very terrifying. Among all the geniuses that Lu Ming had met, only Yi Yu from the Heavenly Human Tribe was able to do so. However, Lu Ming speculated that if Fei Yi was in the Divine Emperor realm, he wouldn't have been able to fight someone who was 6.5 levels higher than him. After he had broken through to the God Emperor realm, he had used the God Emperor realm as his foundation to cultivate for a period of time. Whether it was the primitive divine body, origin secret skills, or divine power, he had made great progress. Then he suppressed his strength to the Divine Emperor realm to be able to fight someone who was 6.5 levels higher than him. Otherwise, Lu Ming speculated that the other party would be able to fight someone who was 5.5 levels higher than him in the Divine Emperor realm. For example, if a Divine Master Realm Cultivator had reached an astonishing level in all aspects, such as origin secret skills, divine power, etc. If a Divine Master Realm Cultivator suppressed his cultivation to the Divine Emperor realm, it wouldn't be difficult for him to fight someone who was 9 levels higher than him. That was why Fei Yi was astonished. He couldn't believe it. Although he was an Emperor God and had suppressed his cultivation to the 9th level of the Divine Emperor realm, he could fight someone who was 6.5 levels higher than him. However, he could not break through Lu Ming's defense. One could imagine how powerful Lu Ming was. He could fight someone who was 7 levels higher than him. Had such a monster appeared in the primordial divine lake? It seems like that's all you've got. Let's end this battle then. At this moment, Lu Ming spoke in a faint voice. Then Lu Ming took a step forward and his body shot out like an arrow, piercing through the flying leaf. The moment he dashed out, Lu Ming threw a punch. This punch contained the great art of destruction, the great art of shattering, and a series of extremely destructive ancient secret skills. Wherever Lu Ming passed by, all the attacks of the flying leaves were defeated and all the leaves exploded. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming appeared under Fei Ye's gigantic tree. His fist accurately hit the trunk of the tree. A terrifying fist energy moved towards the trunk of the tree. Oh no! Fei Ye's heart pounded violently. He could sense how terrifying Lu Ming's punch was. If he continued suppressing his strength, he would definitely be severely injured. At the critical moment, he could not be bothered to continue suppressing his cultivation level. Instead, he unleashed a powerful aura. The power of the god Thearch realm gushed out wildly, wanting to block Lu Ming's punch. Boom! There was an earth-shattering roar and Lu Ming's figure retreated rapidly. He was pushed back tens of thousands of meters before he stopped. However, Fei Ye's gigantic tree was also shaking violently. The gigantic trunk was also pushed back. A gigantic hole appeared in the middle of the trunk. The gigantic tree quickly shrank and turned back into Fei Ye. At that moment, Fei Ye's face was pale. There was blood on the corner of his mouth. Even though he had released the strength of a great god, he was still injured. Firstly, the strength of Lu Ming's punch was indeed shockingly powerful. Secondly, Fei Ye had released the strength of a great god on the spur of the moment. At that moment he couldn't fully release his strength. Therefore, even though he managed to block Lu Ming's attack, he still suffered some injuries. You've lost. Lu Ming stood in the void and looked at Fei Ye indifferently. According to the agreement, Fei Ye had to suppress his cultivation to the Divine Emperor realm. Now that he had released the strength of a great god, it was equivalent to losing. Fei Ye's face was gloomy. Cold light flickered continuously as he stared at Lu Ming. He had indeed lost. He knew that he wasn't Lu Ming's opponent when they were at the same level. He couldn't wait to use his full strength to suppress Lu Ming. However, that would be even more embarrassing. Fei Ye snorted coldly. He walked to the side and stopped talking. Who else wants to come up and try? Lu Ming's gaze swept towards Song Zhan and the others. Song Zhan and the others looked gloomy. However, none of them came out to fight. They knew their own strength. After suppressing their cultivation to the Divine Emperor realm, they were at most on par with Fei Ye. They were definitely not Lu Ming's opponent. Chapter 4205. No one stepped forward to fight with Lu Ming. The surrounding spectators were also discussing animatedly. Is there no one in the primordial divine lake who can fight with him? It's difficult. There's almost no one who can surpass Fei Ye in a battle of the same level. This person's combat strength is really terrifying. Unless he's a pure primordial divine spirit, but how can there be a young primordial divine spirit in this era? Some people sighed. It was difficult to find someone who could match Lu Ming in a battle of the same level. No one else? Lu Ming whispered, a little disappointed. He originally wanted to look around to see if there were any opponents to fight with, but it seemed like he was going to be disappointed. Not necessarily. There's someone who can definitely defeat him. Have you forgotten about that monster? Suddenly someone shouted. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Yuan Jin. At first it was Yuan Jin who provoked Lu Ming, but now Lu Ming was in the limelight, slapping him in the face. This made him extremely unhappy and he wanted someone to suppress Lu Ming. Hearing Yuan Jin's words, many people seemed to have thought of something, and their expressions changed. You mean that monster? Someone asked. That's right, that monster. Yuan Jin gritted his teeth and nodded. But that monster is extremely arrogant. He doesn't like ordinary people at all, and his temper is very strange. Who can invite him? That's right, and I heard that he travels in the primordial divine lake all year round. Even if you want to find him, you can't find him. Some people shook their heads. As far as I know, that monster hasn't been in the primordial divine lake during this period. He's in seclusion in his residence, Yuan Jin said. Even if he's in seclusion in his residence, who can invite him here? He doesn't give face to anyone except for the Divine Master Realm Masters. Someone said. I'll invite him, Yuan Jin gritted his teeth. In order to suppress Lu Ming, he was going to go all out. Kid, do you dare to wait here for a while? I'll find someone stronger to suppress you. Yuan Jin looked at Lu Ming and said. Someone stronger? Don't disappoint me again. Lu Ming said lightly. As soon as this was said, Fei Ye's expression turned even uglier. Lu Ming was implying that he had disappointed Lu Ming. Don't worry, that person's strength has exceeded your imagination, Yuan Jin said. Oh, in that case I'll wait here. After that, Lu Ming walked to Autumn Moon's side and started chatting and laughing with Autumn Moon. Brat, just you wait. Yuan Jin roared in his heart. He was extremely jealous. Then he turned around and left. Yuan Jin, I'll go with you, Yuan Zhan said and followed Yuan Xie. The huge city that Lu Ming and the others were in was to the east of the primordial divine lake. And the person Yuan Jin and the others wanted to invite was not in this city, but in the city north of the primordial divine lake. They flew quickly and soon arrived at the city in the north. Then they came to a small hill. On the small hill there was a simple wooden house. It looked ordinary, but it was simple and elegant. As soon as they arrived, Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan could not help but feel nervous. They looked at each other and saw the cold sweat on each other's face. It seemed that there was something in the wooden house that they were very afraid of. Yuan Jin, are you really going to alert that monster? In my opinion, let's just forget about it, Yuan Zhan said and was a little hesitant. Yuan Jin was also a little guilty. However, in order to suppress Lu Ming, he gritted his teeth and said, invite him, we must invite him. That brat embarrassed me in public. I must teach him a lesson. Then, have you thought of a reason to ask? Yuan Zhan asked. Don't worry, that monster is arrogant, but he's also extremely battle-hungry. He loves to fight with top monsters. When he knows that there's a particularly powerful monster, he'll definitely make a move, Yuan Jin said. As they spoke, the two of them were not far from the wooden house. You two, I'll give you 3 breaths time to get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. At that moment, a cold voice came from the wooden house. Hearing this figure, Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan's bodies suddenly trembled as if they were startled. Yuan Jin swallowed his saliva and tried to steady himself. He said, there's a new peerless monster in the primordial godly lake. He's extremely strong. I want you to exchange pointers with him. I'm not interested. You can leave now. That voice rang out, directly refusing. Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. That person is really strong. He has the strength of the 9th godly emperor layer, but Fei Yi suppressed his cultivation to the 9th godly emperor layer and he defeated him in one strike, said Yuan Jin hastily. Oh. This time, the voice in the wooden house let out a soft, oh, as if it was more interested in the story. Fei Yi suppressed his cultivation to the 9th godly emperor layer and he defeated him in one strike? Interesting. After that, the door of the wooden house opened and a young man appeared in front of Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan. This was a young man. He was tall and slender with firm muscles. He was wearing a simple gray robe. Just by standing there casually, he exuded a terrifying aura. It was as if a terrifying cultivator was hiding inside his body and he could attack at any moment. Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan didn't dare breathe too loudly when they saw that young man. They couldn't help but recall the scene of them being oppressed by that young man. If Lu Ming had been there, he would have been pleasantly surprised. Because Lu Ming knew that young man. He was Lu Ming's old friend, the Wanshen. Indeed, that young man was the Wanshen. Back then, Lu Ming and the Wanshen had entered the primordial godly spirit world together. In the end, the Wanshen had followed the strong cultivators of the primordial godly spirit world to another world, a world that was more suitable for the Wanshen to practice cultivation. Lu Ming had left the primordial godly spirit world and they had parted. I hope you're telling the truth. If I find out you're lying to me, you know the consequences. The Wanshen glanced coldly at Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan. After so many years, the Wanshen's temperament had changed greatly. He had become much sharper and more domineering. Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan both quivered with fear. When the Wanshen had first arrived, they had used their cultivation to bully the Wanshen. However, they hadn't expected that the Wanshen would display such terrifying talent. His cultivation would increase rapidly and so would his combat strength. Soon, his cultivation would catch up to theirs and he would oppress them several times. Moreover, the Wanshen's talent was valued by all the strong cultivators of the primordial godly lake. In terms of background, they couldn't compare to the Wanshen. From then on, the Wanshen had left a shadow in their hearts. If they hadn't wanted to teach Lu Ming a lesson, they wouldn't have come to deal with the Wanshen. It's true. It's definitely true. That guy is really powerful. I believe you won't be disappointed, Yuan Jin said hurriedly. Chapter 4206. Is that so? Interesting. Then let's go meet that fellow. The myriad gods smiled as he stepped into the air. Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan were pleasantly surprised as they hurriedly followed. On the other end, Lu Ming, Qiu Moon and the others were quietly waiting. Qiu Moon was not worried about Lu Ming. After exchanging blows with the celestial soldiers and divine generals, she was well aware of Lu Ming's strength. As long as his opponent did not use cultivation to suppress Lu Ming, she did not believe that anyone could be stronger than Lu Ming in a battle of the same level. Her young master had never disappointed her. He's here. Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm and looked in a certain direction. Simultaneously, everyone's gaze turned in that direction. It's him. It's that monster. He's really here. I didn't think that Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan would really be able to invite that monster. There's going to be a good show to watch. Quick, get someone to come and watch the show. That monster is about to attack. Many people couldn't help but shout. Even some of the older generation members couldn't help but get excited. The strength that Lu Ming had displayed was extremely powerful, but that monster was even more terrifying in their hearts. A fierce battle was certain to follow. Many people took out their voice transmission jade talismans and called for others to come and watch. Coupled with those who had rushed over after hearing the news, this region was now packed with people. In the sky and on the ground there were people everywhere. Lu Ming followed everyone's gazes. He was also very curious as to what sort of person the people of the primal divine lake called a monster, and how strong he was. However, Lu Ming was stunned when he saw it. Lu Ming opened his mouth slightly and widened his eyes in disbelief. The myriad god. He naturally recognized the myriad god at a glance. Although the myriad god's temperament had changed significantly, his appearance and life essence aura had not changed at all. He could be recognized at a glance. Lu Ming had not expected to meet the myriad god here. Could it be that the world the myriad gods went to was the primordial divine lake world? That's right. The primordial divine lake has pure primordial divine spirits. The others are either descendants of the primordial divine spirits or existences who cultivate the primordial divine body. It is very similar to the primordial divine spirit world, but the environment is better and the level is higher. I should have thought of this earlier. What a coincidence. Back then I wasn't able to go to that world, but now I've come here using this method. In an instant, many thoughts appeared in Lu Ming's mind. This brat is scared. At this moment Yuan Jin, Yuan Zhan, and Wan Shen had arrived. When Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan saw the dumbfounded expression on Lu Ming's face, they thought that Lu Ming was afraid. They sneered inwardly and looked forward to seeing Lu Ming being suppressed by the myriad gods. Which one are you talking about? Myriad god asked. It's him. Yuan Jin hurriedly said to Lu Ming. Myriad god's gaze fell on Lu Ming, but it only circled around Lu Ming. When his gaze fell on Autumn Moon, he was stunned. Back in the Taishu dynasty, Myriad God had seen Autumn Moon before. Myriad God's face was immediately filled with joy. In a flash, he appeared in front of Autumn Moon. Lu Ming didn't stop him because the other party was Myriad God. Why should he stop him? Moreover, he realized that even if he wanted to stop him, he couldn't because Myriad God's cultivation was too high. He was certain that Myriad God had stepped into the God Emperor realm. He wasn't sure what God Emperor realm Myriad God was exactly, but he felt that Myriad God's body contained boundless and terrifying energy that was unfathomable. Miss Autumn Moon, you are Miss Autumn Moon. Why are you here? The Myriad God said with a look of joy. Myriad God, why are you here? Autumn Moon also recognized Myriad God and asked curiously. Haha, didn't Lu Ming tell you? Back then, I went to a place to cultivate. That place is here. By the way, where's Lu Ming? Didn't he come with you? Myriad God laughed. He didn't have the sharp temperament from before. His gaze swept around as if he was looking for Lu Ming. Isn't young master right in front of you? Autumn Moon smiled and then took Lu Ming's hand. You mean, he's Lu Ming? Miss Autumn Moon, don't lie to me. His life origin aura is completely different. Miss Autumn Moon, are you lying to me because you have fallen in love with someone else? Myriad God obviously didn't believe her. As he spoke, his face sank and he stared at Lu Ming with hostility. What nonsense are you talking about? That's young Master Lu Ming. Autumn Moon's face turned red as she stomped her feet. Myriad God, I've changed my life origin aura because I've cultivated a special cultivation method. It's normal that you don't recognize me. However, I'm indeed Lu Ming. Don't you remember the first time we met? Lu Ming said with a smile. Then he briefly recounted the first time he met Myriad God. Are you really Lu Ming? The Myriad Gods were still somewhat skeptical. If Lu Ming was alone, even if Lu Ming recounted the first time they met, Myriad God wouldn't believe him. He would think that Lu Ming's memory had been stolen. However, with Autumn Moon around, he had no choice but to believe it. Yes, that's Lu Ming. I can testify. Chiu jumped out and said, You're here too. Looks like you're really Lu Ming. I didn't expect you to change so much after not seeing you for so many years. I almost couldn't recognize you. Myriad God said. He looked at Lu Ming and smiled. You've changed a lot too. Your strength is even more unfathomable. Lu Ming laughed and hugged Myriad God. The others on the side were dumbfounded. What was going on? They originally thought that Myriad God would attack Lu Ming. They didn't expect Myriad God and Lu Ming to know each other as if they were old friends. Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan were especially dumbfounded. They had gone to great lengths to invite Myriad God here just to deal with Lu Ming. What was going on? It was completely different from what they had expected. Wan Xin were talking about him. You, quickly suppress him, Yuan Jin couldn't help but shout. However, he regretted it after shouting. His face turned pale. Sure enough, Myriad God turned around and looked at him with a gloomy face. You two called me here just to deal with my brother? Are you itching for a bone? Then I'll help you fix it. Run. Before Myriad God could finish his words, Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan's faces changed drastically. They retreated without thinking. You want to run in front of me? Myriad God shouted coldly. He stretched out a hand and grabbed at the air. Suddenly, an incomparably huge palm appeared in the sky and pressed down on Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan. It was as if a giant had suddenly appeared in the sky. No! Yuan Zhan and Yuan Jin roared and resisted with all their strength. However, their strength couldn't withstand a single blow from this palm. With a boom, the two of them smashed into the ground like two meteors. Chapter 4207. Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan were smashed to the ground by Wan Xin's palm. They lay on the ground, twitching and coughing up blood. It was a horrible sight. Their faces were pale and their bones were almost all broken. The others on the side looked pale, but no one dared to say anything. Even Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan's elders didn't dare to say anything. First, Wan Xin's strength was too strong. Second, Wan Xin's identity was too special. He had unparalleled talent, and all the important people of the primordial divine lake had high hopes for him. He was known as the seed of hope of the primordial divine spirit clan. No one could beat Wan Xin in terms of background. Who dared to touch him? Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan's elders could only turn a blind eye. After dealing with Yuan Jin and Yuan Zhan, Wan Xin looked at Fei Yi and said coldly, I heard that you attacked my brother. What? Are you bullying him because he's new here or because you're a great supreme god? Fei Yi's face turned pale and he explained, Wan Xin, I was just exchanging pointers with him. Exchanging pointers? Oh, I'll also exchange pointers with you. Come on. Wan Xin said as he stepped forward and walked toward Fei Yi. Fei Yi's face turned even uglier and he shouted, Don't go too far. Yes, I'm going too far. What can you do about it? Wan Xin sneered and continued walking toward Fei Yi. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. Flying Leaf was enraged by the myriad gods pressuring. He roared and unleashed his aura. He once again transformed into a towering tree. This time the tree he transformed into was more than 10 times taller than before. It blotted out the sky and the sun, and its aura covered the mountains and rivers. His aura was terrifying. That's the second layer of the great supreme god realm. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Fei Yi released his aura and his strength was shocking. He had the strength of the second layer of the great supreme god realm. He wasn't an ordinary cultivator of the second layer of the great supreme god realm, but a peerless genius. He could probably fight against an ordinary cultivator of the fourth layer of the great supreme god realm. If he attacked with his full strength, Lu Ming wouldn't be his match. Lu Ming couldn't help but worry for Wan Xin. However, Wan Xin's expression didn't change in front of such a vast aura. Come. The myriad god said indifferently. You forced me to do this. Die. Fei Yi roared and countless leaves flew out from the huge treetop. This time the leaves did not scatter. Instead, they gathered together and transformed into a beam of green light that blasted towards the myriad gods. The strength of his aura was many times stronger than when he was dealing with Lu Ming. Seeing this move, Lu Ming knew that he would not be able to block it with his own strength, unless he used the mysterious ice rod. However, the myriad god remained calm. Boom. At this moment, Wan Xin moved. The muscles on one of his arms bulged, and there was divine power circulating on it. Then he punched out. Heaven and earth shook violently as a terrifying fist energy burst forth from Wan Xin's fist and collided with Fei Yi's attack. Then one could see that Fei Yi's attack was as weak as tofu. He was directly pierced through by Wan Xin's fist. The fist energy didn't stop there. It bombarded the trunk of the huge tree that Fei Yi had transformed into, and a huge hole was blasted open. A mournful scream was heard as the huge tree rapidly shrank. Fei Yi turned back into his human form and there was a hole in his abdomen. Blood was flowing out. Fei Yi kept coughing up blood. His face was pale and his aura was weak. He had been severely injured. However, his eyes were still fixed on the myriad god. He shouted in disbelief, Your cultivation has broken through again? Don't worry. I only used the cultivation of the second layer of the Emperor God realm. Why would I need to use a higher cultivation to deal with you? The myriad god said indifferently. Fei Yi was so angry that he coughed up another mouthful of blood. The surrounding geniuses were also pale. They looked at Lu Ming in shock. The myriad god's divine power had become even stronger. It seemed to have surpassed theirs. So powerful. The myriad god's improvement is too fast. His future is limitless. His talent is too strong. Our primordial divine spirit clan has a chance to rise. Some of the older generation figures who were watching the battle sighed. However, their voices were filled with surprise. This guy is really monstrous. Even Lu Ming couldn't help but sigh. He knew the myriad god's background. The myriad god had evolved from the blood of many primordial divine spirits. He had great potential and talent. It was really terrifying. Now, Lu Ming still couldn't see through the myriad god's cultivation. However, Lu Ming estimated that the myriad god's cultivation was above the third layer of the Emperor God realm. Relying on his forbidden body, his cultivation speed was already monstrous. However, the myriad god seemed to be even more monstrous. It seemed like the primordial divine lake was really suitable for the myriad god's cultivation. The myriad god had made the right choice to come here. Who else wants to try? After dealing with Fei Yi, the myriad god didn't even look at Fei Yi. He looked at Song Jian and the others. Song Jian and the others turned pale. They looked unsightly. Haha, the myriad god, we're just here to watch the show. We have no intention of fighting. Right. I'm just here to watch the show. Only Fei Yi will fight. Right, I remember that I have something to do. I'll leave first. I also have something to do. Song Jian and the other geniuses who were as famous as Fei Yi found excuses to leave. The myriad god, you're very impressive now. Lu Ming walked over and laughed. These people are just itching for a beating. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. They'll have no choice but to use some thunderous methods. The myriad god smiled. Right, where are you staying now? The myriad god asked again. On that mountain. Lu Ming pointed to the mountain peak in the distance that they had come down from earlier. Oh, then let's go up. I still have many questions to ask you. The myriad god said. Then Lu Ming and the others returned the way they had come. On the way they chatted as they walked. Lu Ming briefly recounted his experiences over the years and why his life origin aura had changed. Lu Ming was wary of the Heavenly Palace. In the Heavenly Palace, these things could never be spoken of. However, the primordial divine lake was at odds with the Heavenly Palace. In that case, there was no harm in speaking of it. It did not matter if others knew that he had a taboo body. I see. To think that there's such a mysterious cultivation method in this world that can sever the past and future. Even the life origin aura is different. The myriad god exclaimed. Right, myriad god, is this the world you came from? Lu Ming asked again. That's right. The myriad god nodded and explained, there's a passage in the primordial divine lake that connects to the primordial divine spirit world. These two worlds are actually very similar. They both gave birth to primordial divine spirits. They both gave birth to primordial divine spirits? Lu Ming was shocked. Chapter 4208. A place that gave birth to a primordial divine spirit was no small matter. Yes, but the primordial divine lake is of a higher level. In the primordial divine lake, 72 primordial divine spirits were born. Moreover, the territory here is larger and the cultivation environment is better. There are primordial divine spirits and other experts guarding it. The primordial divine spirit world that we went to was considered the peripheral world of the primordial divine lake. We were looking for geniuses who cultivated the primordial divine body, Wan Shen continued to explain. Looking for geniuses who cultivated the primordial divine spirit body and bringing them to this world? However, many of the races outside are controlled by the Heavenly Palace. Lu Ming said with a look of doubt. Because the Heavenly Palace ruled the universe, the races of the universe all obeyed the orders of the Heavenly Palace. But here they were looking for geniuses who cultivated the primordial divine body. Wasn't this raising a tiger to invite calamity? So, at first, we only brought them to the peripheral worlds to let them cultivate. If there are outstanding geniuses who are suitable for training, we will consider bringing them to the primordial divine lake. However, before bringing them here, they have to go through many tests and tests. Only those who reject the heavenly palace and can be used by the primordial divine lake will be brought to the primordial divine lake for training. However, there are very few of them. There is no other way. The primordial divine lake has few geniuses, so we can only look for them from the outside. Those who are not suitable will be sent back, Wanshin explained. Lu Ming suddenly thought of Murong Qiushui. Murong Qiushui should have made contact with the experts of the primordial divine lake. It was said that he was taken in as a disciple by an important person. However, they met later on in the primitive universe. Now that he thought about it, Murong Qiushui should have failed the test and been sent out. The primordial divine lake world has existed since the beginning of the universe. It has been passed down until now and has always been fighting with the heavenly palace. However, the heavenly palace is too strong and the primordial divine lake is no match for it. It can only float in the universe. Saying this, Wanshin's eyes filled with hatred. Now I know that the primordial divine spirit body was destroyed by the heavenly palace. The blood of the primordial divine spirit flows in my body. As they spoke, they returned to the mountain. Although ordinary people couldn't come up to this mountain peak, however, Myriad God had a special status. He could go anywhere in the 4 cities of the primordial divine lake. Lu Ming, I heard that you are very strong. You easily defeated Fei Yi in a battle of the same level. My hands are itching. Why don't we have a spar? The Myriad God said. If I were to spar with you, wouldn't I be looking for trouble? I can't even see through your cultivation. Lu Ming shook his head. What a joke. Flying Leaf, who had unleashed his full combat strength, had been beaten half to death by Wanshin's punch. He was not looking for trouble. Haha, of course I won't use my cultivation level to oppress you. I'll suppress my cultivation level to the 9th godly emperor layer. The Myriad God Dao looked like he was itching for a fight. Oh, that's fine. Lu Ming nodded in agreement. He was also very curious about how strong Myriad God was. Back when he had just separated from Myriad God's ability to fight across levels wasn't particularly exaggerated. However, he knew very well that it was because the potential of the myriad deities had yet to be unlocked. So many years had passed. How much potential had the myriad deities developed? Wanshin and Lu Ming found a spacious area and stood facing each other. The 3 people from Autumn Moon and Qiuqiu stood in the distance and watched. Lu Ming, be careful, said the Myriad God Dao as he released his aura. It was the aura of the 9th godly emperor layer. The Myriad God Dao had suppressed his cultivation level to the 9th godly emperor layer. Bang! The Myriad God Dao took a step forward and charged at Lu Ming like a bolt of lightning. As he charged, the Myriad God Dao's muscles twitched. His body was covered in a layer of divine power as he threw a punch at Lu Ming. Wherever the fist passed, the void rumbled and exploded. Its power was terrifying. Good! Shouted Lu Ming. He circulated his forbidden energy and his body was covered in a layer of dazzling light. He threw a punch at the Myriad God Dao as well. This punch contained several ancient secret skills with astonishing offensive power. Boom! When the 2 fists collided, it was like 2 stars colliding, producing a powerful shockwave. Then, Lu Ming and the Myriad God Dao's bodies trembled at the same time as they retreated. What powerful strength! Lu Ming felt his fist go slightly numb. Although he hadn't used his full strength just now, the power he erupted with was already very shocking. It was at least at the stage where he could fight across 7 levels. However, it couldn't do anything to the Myriad God Dao. The moment the 2 fists collided, he felt that the power of the Myriad God Dao's fist was astonishing. It was pure physical strength and divine power strength. The Myriad God Dao's physical body had boundless strength and was terrifyingly powerful. He was like a true primordial god. His divine power was rich and condensed, pure and ancient. It was equivalent to awakening the divine power quintessence multiple times. In short, it was boundless and indestructible. It was extremely terrifying. Powerful. Much more powerful than before. This divine power should be equivalent to awakening the divine power quintessence 8 times. Lu Ming praised inwardly. The Myriad God Dao had evolved from a large number of primordial gods' flesh and blood. He cultivated all kinds of primordial divine power and awakened the divine power quintessence. His talent was too strong. His current divine power was comparable to that of someone who had awakened the divine power quintessence 8 times. Otherwise, how could he contend against the taboo power? Is this the taboo power? So powerful. Aha, Lu Ming, you didn't use your full strength, right? Neither did I. Let's go all out then. Don't hold back. The Myriad God Dao laughed, his fighting spirit surging. As you wish. Lu Ming roared. All the cells in his body trembled. All kinds of secret techniques and ancient secret techniques in his cells erupted and merged together. Shwa. Lu Ming's palm was like a blade as he chopped down. A huge blade light slashed at the myriad god Dao. This move was a combination of even more ancient secret techniques. For example, the Great God Saber Art, Great Shatter Art, Great Destruction Art, Great Aurora Art. This move contained many kinds of terrifying offensive power. Its power was even more terrifying than before. Gate of Domination. The myriad god Dao roared. Above his head, a huge stone door appeared. It was ancient and powerful. This was the origin secret technique, Gate of Domination. Lu Ming had controlled it before. Now it was in his past body. The huge Gate of Domination rushed toward Lu Ming, letting out a terrifying roar. Shockingly, an enormous monster emerged from the Sovereign Lord's gate. This monster was incomparably huge and looked very ferocious. There were several huge horns on its head. This is a primordial god? No, it's a primordial god's soul. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He did not expect that the Gate of Domination could be cultivated to such a high level that it could summon the corresponding primordial god's soul. Chapter 4209. The soul of the primordial god that appeared in the Gate of Domination opened its bloody mouth and bit down on the saber gleam that Lu Ming had slashed out. However, it only lasted for a few breaths of time before the primordial god's soul couldn't withstand the saber light's attack. It opened its mouth and was cleaved in half, its body rapidly retreating. Clang. The saber light followed, slashing at the god's gate. The god's gate shook violently and flew back to Wan Shen. However, the saber gleam that Lu Ming slashed out was blocked. Amazing. Again 10,000 Law's spear colored glass fire. Wan Shen growled. His divine power grew even stronger, pushing it to the peak of the 9th godly emperor realm. All sorts of secret techniques appeared above his head. Soon, more than 20 secret techniques appeared above Wan Shen's head. All of them were origin secret techniques. More than 20 origin secret techniques all exuded a terrifying aura. Every origin secret technique severed at least 6 shackles. Some of them even severed 7 shackles. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. It was too shocking. At myriad god's age and cultivation level, even if he could sever 6 or 7 shackles of a single origin technique, he would be 1 in 10,000. He would be a peerless monster. All God, on the other hand, had over 20 quintessence secret arts that had reached this level. Lu Ming, if you can't handle it, you have to speak, Wan Shen said. Don't worry. Go all out. Lu Ming's eyes shone brightly, revealing a powerful battle intent. It was rare for him to show such an expression in a battle of the same level. This was because he felt pressured. He'd already reached the limit of the godly emperor realm. He could fight across 9 levels. He'd originally thought that no one would be able to pressure him in a battle of the same level. He hadn't expected Wan Shen to be able to do so. Boom. Lu Ming activated the battle character art, increasing his battle prowess to the peak by 6 times. Wan Shen's eyes lit up. Alright, so you still have something up your sleeve. Then I won't hold back. With that, myriad god charged towards Lu Ming. Over 20 origin source secret techniques also shot towards Lu Ming. Every origin source secret technique emitted terrifying ripples. Some were fast, some were very hot, and some were as heavy as a mountain. Each origin source secret technique had its own characteristics, but they all had one thing in common, which was that their attack power was extremely shocking. Good timing. Lu Ming's fighting spirit surged as he pushed his forbidden power to the limit. With a wave of his hand, various secret techniques appeared around him. They were all ancient secret techniques, and there were even more of them than the myriad gods. The secret techniques of both sides clashed in the air. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the dazzling light, the two of them fought fiercely. Every second there would be hundreds of collisions. This area was completely enveloped by all kinds of divine light. Ordinary people couldn't see the situation inside at all. They could only hear a series of violent rumbles. The terrifying energy swept out in all directions, and some of it continuously bombarded the ground. However, this mountain was the place where the divine lords and primordial divine spirits cultivated in seclusion. It was extremely tough, and their attacks couldn't even leave a mark on it. This was also the reason why they chose to fight here. In the distance, Chiu Moon and the others circulated their divine power to their eyes. With their God Emperor cultivation, they could see the battle clearly. So terrifying, what kind of monsters are they? Is this still the power of a God Emperor? They're really sick. How many levels can they cross to fight? Anyway, I'm definitely no match for them. The beautiful faces of Chiu Yu's two senior sisters were filled with shock. It was already a miracle for such a person to appear, but now they saw two of them. It was really a miracle of miracles. The battle between the two of them became more and more intense. In the beginning, the two of them still held back. After all, they were friends and were only sparring, so they were afraid of hurting each other. However, after exchanging blows, they realized that each other's strength was above their expectations. Therefore, they became more at ease and slowly raised their fighting strength to the peak. Soon, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of blows, but there was still no clear winner. Awesome. Lu Ming's fighting spirit grew stronger and stronger. He casually used all kinds of ancient secret techniques. However, Wan Xin's strength was also very terrifying. He had used more than 20 offensive origin source secret techniques at the beginning. Later, he used other origin source secret techniques such as defensive ones, speed ones, and so on. When combined, his fighting strength was about the same as Lu Ming's. The two of them couldn't do anything to each other. Later on, Lu Ming even triggered the battle formula to increase his fighting strength by 7 times. However, he discovered that it was the same as last time. After activating the battle character incantation, the strength of his taboo power actually decreased. This caused his battle strength to remain at the level where he could fight across 9 levels, unable to surpass it. Lu Ming knew that this was the limit, and it was difficult to surpass it. Soon, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of blows. Boom. Finally, with a heaven-shaking explosion, the two of them retreated at the same time and stood facing each other. Amazing. Lu Ming, you are many times more powerful than before. Wan Xin sighed as he gradually withdrew his aura. The battle had reached this point and there was no need to continue. Lu Ming also withdrew his aura, and the fluctuations coming from his body weakened. Wan Xin, you're the amazing one. I originally thought that I could suppress you after obtaining the forbidden power, but it seems like I was overthinking things. Lu Ming said. He couldn't help but sigh. Wan Xin was just too powerful. After fusing many ancient secret techniques and ancient secret techniques, his forbidden power had received a massive boost in quality. It was invincible and terrifying. However, Wan Xin's divine body was too strong, and his origin source divine power had been awakened too many times. Coupled with the origin source secret techniques that had severed many shackles, he was completely capable of contending against Wan Xin. In truth, I lost. Your battle strength has already reached the limit of the deity emperor realm. You can fight across 9 levels. Even though I can fight against cultivators who are 9 cultivation levels higher than me, that's because I'm suppressing my cultivation level. My original cultivation level is the Great Supreme God layer. After breaking through to the Great Supreme God layer, my original strength and my original secret techniques have advanced by leaps and bounds. Even though I'm suppressing my cultivation level to the 9th Godly Emperor layer, my original strength and my original strength haven't changed. When I was in the Deity Emperor realm, I could only fight across 8 levels. That's why I lost. Wan Xin said. Don't be modest. Come, let's drink. Lu Ming smiled and walked over to pat Wan Xin's shoulder. After a while, the rich aroma of meat wafted out of Lu Ming's residence. Lu Ming had a large pile of storage rings on him, and there were all sorts of things in them. Fine wine, ingredients, spices, and other things were naturally not lacking. Although he didn't need to eat now and wasn't hungry, he would still occasionally eat to satisfy his cravings. Chapter 42:10. The group chatted as they ate. Lu Ming, you said that your past self mainly cultivates various kinds of divine powers. Why don't you come here to cultivate? Here, you can cultivate various kinds of divine powers and origin secret skills. The effects are very good. Myriad God said. I had such a plan. Lu Ming nodded. Then come. Let me tell you, there are great opportunities in the primordial divine lake. The reason I cultivated so quickly is because of the opportunities one found in the primordial divine lake. When your past self comes, we can go together. Myriad God said. That lake in the primordial divine lake? Lu Ming looked toward the west. That's right. That lake is called the primordial divine lake. That's how this world got its name. In ancient times, 72 primordial divine spirits were born from that lake, the primordial divine spirit said. Myriad God explained. All of them were born from that lake. This time Lu Ming, Chiu Yu and the others were shocked. They had heard that 72 primordial divine spirits were born in the primordial divine lake world. They had thought that these 72 primordial divine spirits were spread out, and different regions gave birth to different primordial divine spirits. For example, the primordial divine spirit world that Lu Ming had been to had 13 famous mountains, and each mountain had given birth to a primordial divine spirit. But it was different here. The 72 primordial divine spirits were all born from that lake. This was a little shocking. Yes. Moreover, these 72 primordial divine spirits were born from eggs. After they left, the eggshells were left behind. These eggshells are peerless treasures for those who cultivate divine power. They are extremely beneficial for cultivating divine power, awakening divine power, and comprehending Origin's secret arts. In the primordial divine lake world, even a fingernail-sized eggshell is priceless. It's very useful even for high-level god emperors. Moreover, there are primordial divine clouds and diluted divine herbs in the primordial divine lake. They are all very valuable. Myriad gods said. The primordial divine lake shouldn't be easy to enter, right? Lu Ming said. Naturally, he would not be blindly overjoyed. Since there were so many precious treasures in the primordial divine lake, if they could be obtained easily, then how could they have stayed until now? You're right. The waves of the primordial divine lake are monstrous. Moreover, the water of the primordial divine lake is not ordinary water. Every drop of water is extremely heavy and accompanied by huge waves. Its power is extremely shocking. In addition, there is also an incomparably powerful pressure. It is very difficult for ordinary people to barge in. Only those with great talent can enter easily. That place has become a training ground for the young geniuses of the primordial divine lake. It's also a treasure hunting ground. Tell your past self to come here. Once you get some primordial divine spirit eggshells, your cultivation base will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Myriad gods Tao. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Alright, I'll open the wormhole and let my past self come over. Lu Ming nodded. Immediately he took out 36 formation discs and injected his forbidden energy into them. Suddenly the 36 discs floated in the air, emitting a bright light. A vortex appeared in the middle, spinning continuously. Everyone waited quietly. After a period of time, a wormhole was successfully opened. Chiu Moon and the others stared at the wormhole with bright eyes. Not long after, a figure suddenly appeared in the wormhole. The figure was slender and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He slowly became clearer. Young master. Chiu Moon could not help but exclaim in surprise. That's right. The figure was Lu Ming's past self. His appearance and aura were exactly the same as Lu Ming's past self. Although Lu Ming's current self was still Lu Ming, his appearance and aura were different after all. Chiu Yu felt a little strange in her heart. At this moment, when she saw his past self, she felt closer to him and immediately flew over. Chiu Moon. Lu Ming's past self smiled and nodded. His figure then left the wormhole and appeared on the ground. Lu Ming's current self waved his hand and put away the 36 formation discs. Lu Ming, this is your past self? TSK. You two are the same person. How strange, how strange. The 10,000 gods glanced back and forth between the past self and the present self. They clicked their tongues in amazement. Chiu Moon also glanced back and forth between the two Lu Mings. She was extremely curious. Don't worry. Even though we're two people, we're still one. We're both Lu Ming, said Lu Ming's current self. Lu Ming, your past self is not good enough. He only has the strength of the 7th godly emperor layer. You have to catch up, said the 10,000 gods, staring at his past self. His past self's cultivation level was indeed the 7th godly emperor layer. After all, his past self had cultivated the 10,000 Cosmos Tau formula. He had many different kinds of godly strength. Now he could control 21 kinds of godly strength and secret skills. Now that he had broken through to the 7th godly emperor layer, it was already an amazing speed. It had something to do with his talent and the cultivation conditions of the Dragon Clan's mother planet. Of course, it also had to do with Ao Qian and Fei Huang's guidance. 10,000 gods, let's go to the primordial godly lake. I came here for the primordial godly lake. Lu Ming went over and said. Let's go, said the 10,000 gods. He turned around and led the way. Lu Ming's past self and present self, as well as Chiu Moon and the others, followed closely behind him. Very quickly they left the huge city and flew west. Boom boom boom. After flying for a while, they heard a deafening rumble. It was the sound of waves crashing. After a while they could see the lake more clearly. The vast and boundless lake was like a vast ocean, vast and boundless. Lu Ming stood in the sky and channeled the taboo power into his eyes. He could barely see the other side of the lake. There was a huge city there. That was the city on the western shore of the primordial godly lake. In the lake, huge waves rose to a height of over 10,000 meters. When they fell, they created a deafening explosion. It was terrifying. There were also huge whirlpools in some parts of the lake. The whirlpools spun crazily. The center was pitch black as if it could crush everything. The closer we get to the center of the primordial godly lake, the more powerful the waves are. It's also more dangerous. Correspondingly, we can obtain more opportunities. There are almost no opportunities in the outer area. Let's enter the primordial godly lake from the center, said the 10,000 gods. All right. Lu Ming and the others nodded. They continued flying into the primordial godly lake. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, above the primordial divine lake, there was a terrifying howling wind. It was like a sharp blade. Lu Ming and the rest could only set up defenses on their bodies to block it. Very quickly they had flown 30,000 li. Let's go down from here and slowly move forward. We should be able to withstand it. I'm afraid something unexpected will happen if we go further, said the 10,000 gods. Chapter 42:11. Lu Ming and company naturally had no objections to the myriad god's suggestion. After all, the myriad god had been cultivating here for many years and was most familiar with the environment. The closer to the center of the primordial divine lake, the stronger it was. The eggshell of the primordial divine spirit was at the bottom of the lake. The other divine herbs and treasures were also at the bottom of the lake. To obtain these treasures, they had to search from the bottom of the lake and sink to the bottom of the lake. If they were to fly too far and sink to the bottom of the lake, the danger of the environment below might exceed what they could withstand. If they were not careful, they might die. They would first sink to a safe area before slowly pushing forward. This way the power would gradually increase. If they could not withstand it, they would not be caught off guard and could slowly retreat. This was the safest method. Immediately, they set up layers of defense around themselves before diving into the lake. Many shields appeared around Lu Ming's past self. This was the origin secret skill Tianxian Shield. The current Profound Sky Shield was many times stronger than before. It enveloped his body tightly. As for his present body, he used his great defensive technique to cover his body with a layer of light. Boom. The moment Lu Ming entered the lake, he felt like dozens of mountains had crashed into him. Even his great defensive technique trembled. What a powerful force. This lake water is no ordinary lake water. It contains an ancient aura as though it was condensed from divine power. Lu Ming sensed it carefully and found that the surrounding lake water was extremely viscous and heavy. When a wave came, it was as though dozens of divine mountains had crashed into it. The force was astonishing. This lake water seemed to be condensed from ancient divine power, like the divine power of a primordial divine spirit. Of course, it was impossible for this to be the divine power of a primordial divine spirit. It only resembled it a little. If it was real, they would not be able to withstand it. Fortunately, the strength of the lake water was something they could withstand. Because the 72 primordial divine spirits were born here, the lake water here is filled with the chi of the primordial divine spirits, becoming violent and terrifying. It's a pity that we can't absorb it. However, there are some treasures that we can find in such an environment, the myriad god explained. Everyone kept sinking. The primordial divine lake was very deep, and they sank for a few thousand miles before reaching the bottom of the lake. Although there weren't any huge waves at the bottom of the lake, there was an undercurrent surging with terrifying power. However, this was still within the acceptable range of everyone. This place has already been explored by others. We don't need to waste time. Let's move forward. Myriad gods Tao. Everyone stepped forward, breaking through the waves. In next to no time, they traveled another 20,000 kilometers. The further they went, the greater the pressure of the waves became. In addition, there was also a terrifying pressure at the bottom of the lake. This kind of pressure was ancient, like the pressure of a primordial god. This kind of pressure could not only affect the body but also the mind and soul. They seemed to hear a terrifying roar coming from ancient times. Those with weak willpower would find it difficult to continue moving forward. At this point, the two senior sisters of Autumn Moon were already struggling. Lu Ming, on the other hand, felt fine. Although Lu Ming's cultivation was the lowest among all of them, he was still very strong. However, he had a forbidden body. His soul was scattered in all his cells, and he could control all kinds of ancient secret techniques, so it was easy for him to resist. As for his past self, his cultivation was only at the 7th Divine Emperor realm, but his body was emitting all kinds of light and all kinds of origin secret techniques, to resist the pressure around him. In addition, Lu Ming's willpower was strong enough. The pressure of the primordial gods was not too strong for Lu Ming. Senior sisters, are you all right? Chiao Yu looked at her two senior sisters worriedly. We're fine. Let's keep moving. Autumn Moon's two senior sisters said. They were all geniuses and had their pride. Seeing that Lu Ming's cultivation was lower than theirs, they naturally did not want to give up. They continued moving forward and soon, they had traveled another 10,000 kilometers. The pressure was even stronger. Chiao Yu's two senior sisters were already panting. However, when they arrived here they finally found something. That's a divine power source orb. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He saw a few crystal-like things not far away. They were divine power source orbs, treasures that could help people activate origin secret techniques. Such treasures were very useful when one was at the lower level of the immortal state. Many powerful clans usually bought them to cultivate their juniors. The price of such consumables had always been high and they were very popular. One of Autumn Moon's senior sisters was the closest to them. She stepped forward and put away the divine power source orbs. Then she continued moving forward. Soon she found something else. Not far away, a divine medicine was swaying at the bottom of the lake. Needless to say, a divine medicine that could grow in such an environment was extraordinary. Lu Ming's past self was closer. He stepped forward and picked the divine medicine, then returned and gave it to his current self. The past and the present were one, so there was no need to talk about them. The treasures that were useful to his past self were kept by his past self. The treasures that were useful to his current self were kept by his current self. This divine medicine contained powerful life energy and was most suitable for the cultivation of a forbidden body. It was most suitable to keep it with his current self. Next, they continued to make discoveries. Divine power source orbs, divine medicine, divine origin flowers, and other things would be found from time to time. Those who were closer to them would pick them up. However, when they traveled about 10,000 miles, the two senior sisters of Autumn Moon's Autumn Moon had almost reached their limit and could no longer move forward. If they continued, they would exceed their limits and be injured. Not only would their bodies be injured, but their souls would also be injured. Physical injuries were easy to recover, but soul injuries were more troublesome. We won't continue. We'll stop here and explore the surrounding area. You can continue. The two senior sisters of Autumn Moon's Autumn Moon said. Senior sisters, be careful. Autumn Moon's Autumn Moon said with concern. Junior sisters of Autumn Moon's Autumn Moon, don't worry. We will be careful. I wish you all the best. One of the senior sisters said with a smile. After that, the two senior sisters of Autumn Moon's Autumn Moon stayed behind and explored horizontally, not approaching the center of the primordial divine lake. Lu Ming and the others continued to move forward. If they wanted to find a treasure like the primordial divine spirit eggshell, they had to go to the center of the primordial divine lake. Without the two senior sisters of Autumn Moon's Autumn Moon, their speed suddenly increased. Soon they traveled another 20,000 miles. This place was already 90,000 miles away from the shore of the lake. The pressure here was even stronger. Lu Ming's past self felt the strong pressure, and the heavenly mystic shield was constantly vibrating. After all, the cultivation of his past self was still a little low, so he was facing a lot of pressure. Chapter 42:12. After all, his past self only had the strength of the seventh godly emperor layer. It was already a miracle that he had made it this far. His past self could withstand the pressure of the soul, but the pressure of the cultivation level was a bit difficult for him. At that moment, his present self walked over and used his great defensive technique to protect his past self. That made the pressure on his past self lessen. On the way they found many things, but unfortunately, they didn't find the original godly spirit's eggshell. When they were 120,000 li away from the shore, Suddenly Autumn Moon's eyes widened and she looked in a certain direction. There was something on the ground that was emitting a milky white light. Pure and terrifying energy was emanating from it. That thing was only the size of a fingernail, but it was like a sun, constantly emitting energy. The original godly spirit's eggshell. It's the original godly spirit's eggshell. Ah, we're lucky. The 10,000 gods smiled and said, Miss Autumn Moon, it's yours. Take it. Young master, do you want it? Autumn Moon looked at Lu Ming's past self. She knew that Lu Ming's past self had cultivated all kinds of godly strength. The original godly spirit's eggshell was very helpful to him. No need. You found it, so take it. There must be more at the bottom of the lake. The past self smiled. Autumn Moon didn't insist. She nodded and walked towards the original godly spirit's eggshell. When she arrived next to the original godly spirit's eggshell, Autumn Moon's heart suddenly emitted a powerful 9-colored light. They could vaguely see a 9-orifice heart. The sacred heart of 9-orifice. Autumn Moon's sacred heart of 9-orifice appeared and a 9-colored light enveloped the original godly spirit's eggshell. Then the original godly spirit's eggshell was absorbed by the sacred heart of 9-orifice. A powerful aura emanated from Qiuyu's body, but it was retracted in the next moment. She couldn't refine the original godly spirit's eggshell so easily. She had to refine it slowly. After discovering the original godly spirit's eggshell, they were excited and continued moving forward. After a short time they found another one the size of a fingernail, but this time there were other people nearby. A prodigy from the primordial divine lake also discovered the primordial divine spirit eggshell. However, under the pressure of the myriad gods, the other party could only retreat. This piece of primordial god eggshell was put away by Lu Ming's past self. But from then on their good luck seemed to have run out. After searching for half a day, they didn't find a single piece of primitive god spirit eggshell. They didn't even find one the size of a fingernail. At this time, they were already about 200,000 miles away from the lakeside. At this point the pressure was already terrifying. Rumble. At the bottom of the lake, the undercurrent was surging violently. Moreover, it contained a terrifying pressure that continuously battered their bodies. In front of them, there seemed to be a terrifying power that was like a barrier. They advanced a few times but they were pushed back by that power. This is the limit. Every time I come here I'll be forced out. Myriad gods Dao. You didn't even go there once? Lu Ming's present body asked. No. I'm guessing that there's definitely a great opportunity inside. Unfortunately I can't enter. The power is too strong. The myriad gods shook their heads. I don't know if my taboo power can break it. I'll give it a try. Wait for me. Lu Ming's present body stepped forward. Young master, be careful. Qiuyu said worriedly. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll do my best. Lu Ming smiled. He then took a step forward and dashed forward. Boom. A powerful force rushed toward Lu Ming. Break for me. Lu Ming shouted. The taboo power completely erupted and gathered on his palm. Lu Ming slashed out with his palm with all his strength. Boom. Lu Ming's palm collided with the force in front of him, and a violent explosion erupted. A large amount of lake water in the surroundings was repelled to the sides. Lu Ming's body trembled and his arm kept shaking. However, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He felt that the force in front of him wasn't unbreakable. Under the attack of the taboo power, there seemed to be a flaw and a gap was torn open. Alright, let's continue, Lu Ming shouted and pushed the taboo power to the extreme. His palm struck out continuously. Boom, boom, boom. Intense rumbling sounds continued to ring out, and the entire area trembled. The lake water was being expelled, forming a vacuum. Although Lu Ming's body kept shaking, the force in front of him was indeed slowly being torn apart. Bam, bam. With every tear, Lu Ming took a step forward, and the ground under his feet shook violently. However, with every step, Lu Ming took another step forward. In this way, Lu Ming took more than 10 steps in a short period of time, advancing more than 10 meters. However, what made Lu Ming's heart sink was that the further he advanced, the stronger the force became. The pressure on Lu Ming was also increasing. After a few more steps, Lu Ming's body kept shaking. He was under great pressure. He used all his strength to attack, but it was difficult to continue tearing apart that force. Almost there, thought Lu Ming. He had the feeling that he was about to tear apart that force. As long as he could tear it apart, he would be able to enter the next area. However, the pressure was too great. Lu Ming couldn't break through it no matter what he did. A Shen rod. Lu Ming shouted in his heart. He took out the Bing Shen rod and attacked with all his might. However, it was useless. It wasn't a problem of attacking power. In terms of attacking power, the 10,000 gods were much stronger than him. In addition, there were many divine arch-gods in the primordial sacred lake. Those above the 4th level of the divine god realm, and even those at the 7th, 8th and 9th level of the divine god realm were stronger than Lu Ming. However, none of them could break through. Lu Ming was able to achieve this because of the special nature of the forbidden force. Therefore, using the Ice Shen rod and attacking with his hand had the same effect. It was the effect of the forbidden force. I can't break it. Unfortunately, my cultivation is still too low. The forbidden force isn't strong enough. If I could break through to the divine emperor realm, I would be able to break through this force and enter. Thought Lu Ming. Let's try again. Lu Ming gritted his teeth. He squeezed out the last bit of energy in his body and attacked with all his might. Bang. Finally, Lu Ming took another step forward. He took another step forward. He was even closer to breaking through, but he still didn't break through. He was still a bit away. Lu Ming felt that he was about to break through. Suddenly Lu Ming's eyes widened. At this point he could vaguely see the scene behind the force. Previously, their vision had been completely blocked. They couldn't see what was in front of them. But now Lu Ming could vaguely see something. He was shocked. Chapter 42:13. Lu Ming was shocked. The primordial god spirit eggshell. He could vaguely see the primordial god spirit eggshell in front of him. And it wasn't just one piece but many pieces. And they weren't as small as a fingernail but very large pieces. Shocking, extremely shocking. Break in. I must break in. Lu Ming roared in his heart. Although these primordial god spirit eggshells weren't very useful to the taboo body, they were very useful to Wan Xin, Autumn Moon and his past self. Especially his past self. Although the past and present were two separate entities, they were still one. The stronger his past self was, the stronger he was. It also meant that Lu Ming was stronger. If he could get the primordial god spirit eggshells in front of him, his cultivation would definitely skyrocket. Whether it was the origin divine power factor, the primordial god body, or the origin secret technique, they would all be very helpful. He had to rush in. He had to get it. However, he had reached his limit and couldn't take another step forward. How should he break in? Right, the purple copper coffin. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Let's give it a try. The purple copper coffin should have a lot to do with the primordial god spirit. As long as he took out the purple copper coffin, he should be able to pass. With a thought, the purple copper coffin appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Go over and prepare to break through. As soon as the purple copper coffin appeared, Wan Xin's past self knew what his present self was going to do. He shouted and rushed forward with Autumn Moon and Wan Xin, arriving behind Lu Ming. Boom. Lu Ming covered the purple copper coffin with his taboo power, raised it and smashed it forward. The void in front of him shook violently as the powerful force kept exploding. Then it was forcefully penetrated, creating a hole. It's really effective. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he revealed a look of joy. The purple copper coffin was really effective. He didn't even need to open it to directly disperse the force in front of him. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble and would have used the purple copper coffin to attack. Behind him, Wan Xin's eyes also lit up. Today there was hope for him to set foot in this place that he had never set foot in. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming swung the purple copper coffin and continued to bombard the force in front of him. The force was constantly being torn apart and the hole was getting bigger and bigger. It was enough for them to pass through. Quick, get in. Lu Ming's present body roared. Go. Myriad God bellowed. With past body, Autumn Moon's figure flashed as she charged towards the hole. Her figure sank into the hole as she broke through the force that was holding her back. In the end, Lu Ming's present body also dashed into the hole. As soon as he rushed in, the force automatically gathered together. When Lu Ming broke in and saw the situation inside, his eyes widened. The eggshell of a primordial god. As far as the eye could see, the ground was littered with the eggshells of primitive gods. The small ones were only the size of a fingernail, while the larger ones were the size of a palm or a plate. Most shocking of all, there were a few pieces of eggshell that were several times bigger than a water tank. There were a total of 3 such eggshells. They were shaped like bowls placed on the ground, but their diameters were more than 3 meters. Within the eggshells, there were strands of light emanating from them. Lu Ming put away the purple copper coffin and walked closer to take a look. He was even more alarmed. The largest pieces of eggshell actually contained some kind of liquid. The liquid was golden in color, as though gold had turned into liquid. It shimmered with an intoxicating luster. At the same time, an extremely rich and ancient aura emanated from the liquid. It was very similar to the blood of a primordial god, but at the same time, it was not. This is the egg white left behind from the eggshell that gave birth to the primordial god. Wan Xin muttered to himself as his eyes widened. Egg white. The others were puzzled. That's right. The primordial gods in the primordial divine lake were all born from eggs. After they left, there was still egg white left behind. This is the egg white left behind after the primordial gods left. It's a peerless treasure. Those who cultivate divine power will reap unimaginable benefits if they absorb this egg white and eggshell. It seems that this area gave birth to 3 primordial gods, Wan Xin exclaimed. There were 3 bowl-like eggshells with golden egg white inside. Clearly there were 3 primordial god eggs. The other small pieces of eggshell were naturally left behind when the primordial gods broke out of their shells. That's great. There are 3 eggshells. One for each of you. Lu Ming's present body smiled. He cultivated a forbidden body, so treasures left behind by primordial gods were not very useful to him. Besides, Qiuqiu had no need for these things. Qiuqiu only needed to devour metals or weapons made of metals. Of the 3 eggshells, the past body, autumn moon, and Wanshen would each have one. Let's keep the smaller eggshells. Don't take these 3 big ones. We will cultivate directly in the eggshells. After all, these primordial god eggs were originally here. It's best if we absorb and refine them here, Wanshen said. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon naturally had no objections. Then the group began to put away the surrounding eggshells. The past body, Autumn Moon, and Wanshen split the eggshells equally. Lu Ming's present body did not take much. He only took some as a token. After all, they were not of much use to him. Then the past body, Autumn Moon, and Wanshen each entered an eggshell and sat down cross-legged. Immediately, the golden liquid in the eggshells moved. Like golden ribbons, they wrapped around the 3 of them. The 3 of them looked solemn as they cultivated with all their might. It was as though they had turned into 3 primordial gods. This refinement will probably take a long time. I'd better go somewhere else. Lu Ming's present body pondered. Then he wandered around the area. He discovered that the area within a few hundred miles was enveloped by a powerful force. It was like a layer of restriction. If he wanted to enter this place, he had to break through this layer of power. It's very safe to cultivate here. No one will disturb me. Lu Ming smiled. The primordial god eggshells had been left here for so long without being taken away. This meant that no one had entered this place before. This time, if not for Lu Ming's taboo power and the purple copper coffin, they would not have been able to enter at all. Since others could not enter, it was naturally very safe to cultivate here. No one would disturb them. Therefore, Lu Ming planned to leave first and explore the area. Lu Ming walked to the side and took out the purple copper coffin. He planned to break through this force and leave this place first. However, what surprised him was that this time, he didn't encounter any obstructions. He actually passed through easily. Let's go to the core of the primordial divine lake to take a look. Lu Ming put away the purple copper coffin and walked towards the center of the primordial god lake. Along the way, he collected some natural treasures. Chapter 42:14. The closer they were to the center of the primordial divine lake, the greater the pressure they faced. In the end, even when Lu Ming used the taboo power, it was very difficult for him to move an inch. I wanted to go to the center to see what's inside, but it seems like I won't be able to. Lu Ming shook his head slightly and decided to retreat. However, at this moment, Lu Ming's expression changed. This was because the purple copper coffin in his sea of consciousness had undergone a change. Lu Ming didn't control the purple copper coffin. The purple copper coffin flew out on its own. A force carried Lu Ming forward. Lu Ming felt his body lighten. The external force disappeared without a trace. It didn't affect him at all. The purple copper coffin carried Lu Ming toward the center of the primordial divine lake. It was extremely fast. It was as if the surrounding lake water didn't hinder it at all. In just a few breaths of time, they had flown an unknown distance away, and the purple copper coffin came to a stop. Lu Ming's gaze was first attracted by something in front of him. It was a weapon. It was a war halberd. It was purple in color and seemed to be made of purple copper. Lu Ming suddenly felt that the material of this war halberd was similar to the purple copper coffin. The war halberd was about 3 meters long. It was stuck in the ground. It didn't seem to have any fluctuations or spirituality. It looked like an ordinary weapon. I want to eat, I want to eat. At this moment, Qiuqiu cried out. Its voice was filled with eagerness and anticipation. It was originally a bracelet on Lu Ming's wrist. At this moment, 2 eyes appeared on the bracelet. They stared at the war halberd with burning flames. However, it seemed like it couldn't charge out. There was a terrifying pressure here. It was only fine in Lu Ming's hands. Crack. Before Lu Ming could think further, the purple copper coffin moved again. The sound just now came from the coffin lid. The coffin lid moved away on its own. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes. The purple copper coffin moved on its own again. In his vision, the purple copper coffin rarely moved on its own. During this period of time, it was rare for him to move. Why would it move on its own now? Was it because of that halberd? The purple copper coffin moved away, revealing a small gap. Immediately, a terrifying aura spread out from the gap. Lu Ming felt a terrifying pressure. His entire body tensed up as if his body was about to be torn apart. It's so scary. What's inside? Lu Ming roared in his heart. Compared to the copper coffin, it seemed that no matter how much progress he made or how much his cultivation base increased, he was still like an ant. When his cultivation was still weak, he would feel a terrifying pressure when the purple copper coffin was opened. It was as if he was an ant facing a divine dragon. Now, when he had the strength of the top of the 9th godly emperor layer, he still had the same feeling when the coffin was opened. The gap was too big. Fortunately, the lid of the purple copper coffin only opened a little before it stopped moving. Clang. At this time the halberd moved, releasing a king-chiang sound, and then it began to tremble slightly. Finally, the halberd left the ground and flew towards the purple copper coffin. So it's broken. Lu Ming's heart jumped. After the halberd left the ground, Lu Ming realized that the tip of the halberd was broken, as if it had been cut off by a sharp weapon. The halberd flew towards the purple copper coffin and quickly shrank. It turned into a beam of light and flew into the purple copper coffin through the gap. After the purple copper battle halberd flew in, the purple copper coffin closed with a kacha sound. The crack in the coffin disappeared, and the terrifying pressure disappeared without a trace. What a pity, what a pity! Chiu Chiu sighed. He almost beat his chest and stamped his feet. He was extremely annoyed. According to his instincts, the purple copper halberd was extremely attractive to him. If he had been able to devour it, he would have obtained unimaginable benefits. Unfortunately, the purple copper coffin had absorbed it. What does the purple copper halberd have to do with the purple copper coffin? It's obvious that the purple copper coffin was attracted by it and flew towards it, thought Lu Ming. The purple copper coffin was very mysterious. He had never been able to figure out the origins of the purple copper coffin. Now he had another question. At this time, the purple copper coffin moved again. A force wrapped around him and brought Lu Ming outside. After a few breaths, Lu Ming returned to where he had been and left the central region of the primordial divine lake. You brought me back. Aren't you going to bring me to other places? Lu Ming muttered. Lu Ming had thought that the purple copper coffin would bring him to other places in the central region of the primordial divine lake. Clearly he had thought too much. The purple copper coffin dashed into Lu Ming's sea of consciousness and floated quietly in it. There were no other strange movements. Lu Ming could only move on his own. However, without the help of the purple copper coffin, he could not get close to the central region of the primordial divine lake. He could only wander around the area and obtain some treasures. A day later, Lu Ming began his return. Finally, he left the primordial divine lake and returned to his residence. During the mid-autumn moon, the myriad god and company were cultivating there. Clearly it would not end anytime soon. There was no need for him to wait. After returning to his residence, he silently cultivated in search of a way to make a breakthrough. Rumble. Lu Ming had not cultivated for half a day when the entire world suddenly shook violently. What's going on? Lu Ming's expression changed. The tremors were too intense. It was as though the world was being turned upside down. It was definitely not simple. Lu Ming rushed out of the house. Rumble. Another deafening boom sounded. The sky and land shook violently once again. The entire primordial divine lake world was shaking. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures soared into the sky from all directions of the primordial divine lake. They stood in the void and looked up into the sky. The sound of tremors came from that void. Rumble. The tremors grew more and more intense, and the sky began to ripple like water. Chila. Following that, the sky was torn apart and a very long fissure appeared. Through the fissure one could see some scenes outside. One could see the starry sky of the universe outside, dotted with stars. In the starry sky of the universe, there were armies standing in the starry sky, exuding a somber aura. Heavenly army. After seeing those figures, Lu Ming was shocked. Those figures were clearly heavenly army. They wore silver or golden armor and were led by divine generals. At a glance there were at least tens of thousands of them. And this was only the tip of the iceberg. In reality there were definitely more people. In addition, there were some incomparably huge figures that exuded terrifying fluctuations. They were bombarding the void and tearing it apart. Through the fissure, a terrifying aura emanated. The Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming's pupils constricted. The heavenly palace was here. Chapter 42:15. It was clear that the heavenly palace had arrived. Someone at the level of the Lord of Heaven was tearing the world wall of the primordial divine lake world and was about to charge in. The primordial divine lake world was different from the ordinary minor kiliacosms. The primordial divine lake world had a powerful world wall and was hidden in the dark void, constantly drifting. Unexpectedly, the heavenly palace could find the coordinates of the primordial divine lake world. Swish, swish, swish. Figures appeared in the sky of the primordial divine lake world. These figures all exuded an aura as heavy as a mountain. Each one of them was like an abyss, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Divine Masters. These were all Divine Masters. Lu Ming gasped a breath of cold air. That was because he saw at least 50 figures at a glance. These should all be Divine Master Realm existences. Divine Emperor Realm existences could not possibly have such powerful auras. The primordial divine lake world had more than 50 Divine Masters. This was absolutely terrifying. No wonder they dared to go against the heavenly palace. Among them, Lu Ming saw the primordial divine spirit that had saved them. There were also a few figures. Lu Ming also sensed a special aura, which was also the aura of the primordial divine spirits. Clearly, the primordial divine lake world had more than one purebred primordial divine spirit. Everyone return to the cities and activate the arrays of the 4 cities at any time. A primordial divine spirit said, his voice spreading throughout the primordial divine lake world. Yes. Yes, sir. Roars rang out one after another. Apart from the Divine Masters, everyone else flew back to the 4 giant cities. There were 4 giant cities in the 4 directions of the primordial divine lake. These cities were not only used for residential purposes. These 4 cities had arrays that could be combined to activate a powerful array. Lu Ming stood on the mountain peak, unmoving. The god lords hovered in the air, their gazes fixed on the crack. At this moment, the crack in the sky was getting bigger and bigger. Attack, stop them. A primordial divine spirit ordered. At the same time, his body swelled rapidly, turning into a primordial divine spirit. This was his true body. The true bodies of primordial divine spirits were abnormally tall. Boom. This primordial deity had a strange body. It had the head of a tiger and the body of a human. Its body was covered in scales. He held a spear in his hand and thrust it towards the crack. The spear was aimed at the Lord of Heaven who was tearing apart the world barrier. This was the attack of a primordial divine spirit in its prime. Its power was too terrifying. If it was in the universe, it could pierce through a galaxy. Even a heaven monarch would be severely injured if he was hit by such an attack, even if he didn't die. However, the Lord of Heaven's expression did not change. Your opponent is me. A cold voice sounded, and another figure appeared beside the Lord of Heaven. This was another Lord of Heaven, and it held a golden spear as it stabbed out. Clang. The 2 weapons clashed together, emitting a terrifying shockwave. Then both figures retreated at the same time. What a powerful force. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The primordial divine spirit who had just attacked was definitely powerful enough. It was not weaker than the one who had saved them previously. However, the Lord of Heaven had blocked the attack. This Lord of Heaven was probably stronger than an ordinary Lord of Heaven. Attack. At this moment, the other Divine Masters of the primordial divine lake all attacked. One Divine Master had the power to destroy the world. With so many Divine Masters attacking together, it was earth-shattering. The terrifying shockwaves seemed to be able to pierce through the entire universe. These Divine Master Realm existences bombarded the torn world wall with terrifying attacks, trying to kill the celestial palace powerhouses who were tearing the world wall apart. However, when these attacks approached the torn world barrier, many beams of energy flew in from the outside. Each of these beams of energy was terrifying. They were all from the Divine Masters and there were dozens of them. The attacks from both sides collided near the world barrier, and an earth-shattering explosion occurred. A terrifying shockwave swept out in all directions. The shockwave directly hit the torn world barrier. Rumble. There was already a long crack in the world wall, but after being swept up by this force, the crack became even bigger. Oh no, stop attacking. An expert of the primordial divine lake shouted. It was clear that the heavenly palace had used their strength just now to tear the crack in the world wall even wider. At this moment, the crack in the world barrier was several times bigger than before. They could see the situation outside more clearly. In the starry sky, the heavenly soldiers and divine generals were lined up in rows. There were definitely more than 100,000 of them. In addition, there were many divine masters as well. There were more than 50 of them that could be seen and some that could not be seen. This time, the heavenly palace had also sent out a powerful force. The 9 Lord of Heaven are attacking together. How rare. A primordial divine spirit said. Primordial divine lake, do you think you can do whatever you want by hiding in the dark void? We have already captured your coordinates. We wanted to wait for a while and let you live a little longer, but you are in a hurry to die, so we have no choice but to fulfill your wish. A cold voice came from outside the world barrier. A tall figure appeared. He was shrouded in light, and his long golden hair danced in the wind. His aura was very intimidating. It was a Lord of Heaven. When the Lord of Heaven finished speaking, more and more figures appeared around him. Among them, 9 figures had the most intimidating auras. In addition, there were more than 60 figures with terrifying auras. Not all of them were from the heavenly humans. Some of them were from the top races in the universe, such as the angels and the demons. These were all divine master-level existences. The Lord of Heaven was only a title of the heavenly palace. Only the heavenly humans could receive this title. However, not all divine masters of the heavenly humans could receive the title of Lord of Heaven. The Lord of Heaven was a top existence even in the divine master realm. This time, the heavenly palace had sent 9 Lord of Heaven, leading a large number of divine masters to attack. Today, the primordial divine lake will disappear from the universe. The Lord of Heaven said domineeringly. How arrogant. Let's see who you can kill. Kill. In the primordial divine lake, the primordial divine spirit who had saved Lu Ming last time roared and charged forward. He punched out and the void shattered. The huge fist smashed toward the divine masters of the heavenly palace. The power of this punch was extremely terrifying, and some of the ordinary godly lords were shocked. Even an ordinary divine master would be instantly killed by such an attack. Swoosh. A Lord of Heaven attacked. His body was covered in dense heavenly power. A battle sword appeared in his hand and he slashed out, colliding with the fist of the primordial divine spirit. Chapter 42:16. The Lord of Heaven clashed with the primitive divine spirit's attack, creating an earth-shattering explosion. Then a figure retreated. The Lord of Heaven was the one who retreated. The Lord of Heaven was no match for the primitive divine spirit. The Lord of Heaven is only SOSO. Today, I will take the head of the Lord of Heaven as an offering to the primitive divine spirits. The primordial god spirit roared. His tall and sturdy body stepped forward, his aura surging wildly. The Lord of Heaven, who had just been pushed back, was stunned. Hong, let me be your opponent. A cold voice said. Then a figure appeared in the air. This was also a heavenly monarch. However, this heavenly monarch was a woman. She had long golden hair, fair skin and peerless beauty. This was a female Lord of Heaven. Damning Lord of Heaven, you came at the right time. Let me see if you have improved over the years. The primitive divine spirit shouted. The primitive divine spirit who had saved Lu Ming and the others was called Hong. Most of the primitive divine spirits' names were one word. Hong's body was indomitable and in human form. His entire body was covered in scales. When he punched out, heaven and earth would explode. The power was terrifying to the extreme. Fortunately, this was the world of the primordial divine lake. It was formed at the beginning of the world and was extremely stable, just like the Dragon Clan's mother planet. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to withstand a battle between divine masters, just like the universe. In front of Hong, damning Lord of Heaven was as small as a speck of dust. However, no one dared to underestimate her. This was because damning Lord of Heaven was one of the most powerful Lords of Heaven in the heavenly palace. Damning Lord of Heaven stood there calmly. She reached out her finger and pointed it casually. Whoosh! A blast of energy shot out and collided with Hong's fist. There was no sound of collision, but Hong's face changed drastically. His body trembled and he was forced to retreat. A bloody hole had already appeared on his fist and blood was flowing out. Lu Ming could not help but swallow his saliva. This was the blood of a primordial god. It was such a waste for it to slip away like that. Hong, we haven't seen each other for many years. Your strength is still disappointing. Big Dream Lord of Heaven said calmly. Taking a step forward, a formless energy spread out towards Hong. Dream Force. Not good. Hong's face changed drastically. The primordial divine power in his body burst out crazily as he punched out with both his fists. Such an attack was absolutely terrifying. If it was in the universe, a galaxy would be destroyed by such an attack. However, such an attack could not stop the power that burst forth from the Lord of Heaven. However, he was only able to block a portion of it. There was still a portion that he was unable to block, and it continued to envelop Hong. The moment he was enveloped by this power, Hong's movements suddenly slowed down. He became a little dazed and his eyelids drooped as if he was about to fall asleep. Swoosh! Big Dream Lord of Heaven moved. He quickly approached Hong and pointed out another finger. Heavenly punishment. Big Dream Lord of Heaven said coldly in the air. A finger force pierced through Hong's forehead at an astonishing speed. Brr. At the critical moment, Hong roared to wake himself up. The primordial divine spirit burst out crazily, enveloping him. At the same time he tilted his head back. Blood splattered everywhere. Hong did not manage to dodge the attack completely and was hit. A bloody hole appeared on his forehead. However, he managed to avoid being hit in his vital parts, so he was not seriously injured. However, in his heart he was secretly afraid. That attack just now was really dangerous. You have improved since you were able to dodge my attack. However, that's all. Big Dream Lord of Heaven's cold voice resounded. If it wasn't for your dream force, I would not be afraid of you. If you have the ability, let's fight face to face, Hong roared. Ridiculous, Big Dream Lord of Heaven said coldly. She continued to use her dream force to attack. The scariest thing about the Great Dream Heavenly Lord was her great dream power. It was extremely terrifying. Her most terrifying record was when she made a move that made all the living beings in the entire galaxy fall asleep in an instant. It was truly terrifying to the extreme. She was known as one of the strongest Lord of Heaven because of this. How could she give up her strongest attack? Hong retreated again. However, the dream force was omnipresent and fast. No matter how Hong tried to dodge, he was still hit. He became a little dazed again and his movements slowed down. Heavenly punishment, kill. Big Dream Lord of Heaven said coldly. This time, a battle sword appeared in her hand. She stabbed the sword towards Hong's forehead. The power was stronger and faster than before. This time, Hong was unable to dodge it. Hong and Big Dream Lord of Heaven exchanged a few moves. It seemed to have taken a long time, but in fact it only happened in an instant. It was at this moment that another primitive god spirit arrived. This primordial immortal spirit was like a male lion. With a loud roar, the heavens and earth shook. Hong, who was about to fall asleep, was suddenly awakened. He fought back with all his might and blocked Dream Lord's attack. Lion, are you here to interfere? Then I'll kill you too. Big Dream Lord of Heaven said. Although she was a woman, she was domineering and charming. She continued to use her dream force. However, the primitive divine spirit, lion, roared, shaking heaven and earth. It kept Hong and himself awake. He grabbed at Big Dream Lord of Heaven with his huge claws. When he clashed with Big Dream, the void shattered and turned into chaos. At the same time, Hong attacked again. You want to win with numbers? Attack together. Another Lord of Heaven roared. He wanted to help Big Dream Lord of Heaven. You don't need to interfere. Go deal with the others. Leave these two to me. Big Dream Lord of Heaven said coldly. The other Lord of Heaven and Divine Lords could only stop and attack the other Divine Lords of the Primordial Divine Lake. Kill? The other Divine Lords of the Primordial Divine Lake were fearless. Both sides fought. With so many Divine Masters fighting at the same time, it was too terrifying. The space was smashed into pieces. They directly entered the dark void and fought crazily in the dark void that was eternally withered. In the blink of an eye, the battle was over. The sky above the primordial divine lake world suddenly quieted down. Celestial soldiers and divine generals, attack and destroy the primordial divine lake world. Kill all the living beings inside. A cold voice sounded outside the world wall. Kill? Kill, kill, kill. Battle cries shook the sky. The army of celestial soldiers and divine generals approached the torn world wall. At a glance they could not see the end. There were more celestial soldiers and divine generals than expected. There were at least 200,000 of them. Array rise. With another roar, the celestial soldiers and divine generals separated into square formations and formed array formations. Obviously, these celestial soldiers and divine generals came prepared. They could set up array formations with each other. Dazzling lights spread out and gathered in the sky. Then, several terrifying divine lights blasted toward the primordial divine lake world. Chapter 42:17. The heavenly soldiers and divine generals set up a grand formation. Terrifying divine light shot toward the primordial divine lake world. Wherever it passed, everything would be destroyed. Grand formation rise? Grand formation rise. Shouts came from the 4 cities in the primordial divine lake world. Following that, the 4 huge cities all emitted dazzling multicolored light. Above the four cities, four different weapons condensed. There were swords, sabers, spears and spears. In the sky above the huge city where Lu Ming was, a long spear condensed. The spear was huge. It crossed the sky above the city and cast a huge shadow. It was even bigger than the city. Clang. The spear vibrated and flew out as if it was controlled by a peerless expert. It thrust out many spear shadows and collided with the divine light. The weapons above the other three cities did the same. The weapons formed by the battle formations attacked the divine light. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions occurred above the primordial divine lake world. Violent energy waves swept in all directions. The attacks of the heavenly soldiers and divine generals were blocked. Continue. The heavenly soldiers and divine generals continued to activate the grand formation and attack. However, the attacks of the heavenly soldiers and divine generals were all blocked by the four cities. They did not suffer any losses. After all, the primordial divine lake world had survived from the age of incipient God. After many years of accumulation and development, its strength was very shocking. Otherwise, it would not have dared to fight against the heavenly palace. The heavenly palace's forces were not enough to take it down. The two sides were in a stalemate for a while. The heavenly palace did not make much progress. You guys continue to attack. We will support you. At this time, a few more figures appeared beside the torn world barrier. There were three of them. One of them was a heavenly human. As for the other two, one was obviously an angel. The other had a strong blood chi. He should be from the blood race. Yale, the Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming's expression changed when he saw the heavenly human. This heavenly human was an old acquaintance. He was the Lord of Heaven of the heavenly palace who had attacked the Dragon Clan's mother planet. The angel race and blood clan experts beside him were clearly two divine masters as well. Be careful, it's the Lord of Heaven from the heavenly palace. Lu Ming immediately roared, his voice spread far and wide, reminding the people of Primordial Divine Lake. When the people of the Primordial Divine Lake heard this, they were also greatly shocked. In the heavenly palace, another Lord of Heaven appeared. It seemed that the number of Lord of Heaven that came from the heavenly palace was not 9, but 10. The Lord God of Heaven and the divine lords from before had already been blocked by the divine lord experts of the Primordial Divine Lake. The battle had gone into the dark void. There were no longer any divine masters in the Primordial Divine Lake. The Lord of Heaven of the heavenly palace has appeared. Attention, combine the four formations. A loud roar echoed in all directions. Buzz. The multicolored light in the four giant cities became even more dazzling. Lu Ming felt that the mountain peak beneath his feet was trembling slightly. Waves of primordial and ancient aura emanated from the mountain peak. It was as if a primordial divine spirit was about to awaken within the mountain peak. On the ground, a layer of ancient divine power flowed and then shot up into the sky. Lu Ming stood on the mountain peak and looked into the distance. He realized that the four giant cities seemed to have formed a resonance. A light shield formed and enveloped the four giant cities and the Primordial Divine Lake. In the blink of an eye, the Yale Lord of Heaven and the two divine lords had already made their move. The Yale Lord of Heaven took out a battle sword and slashed with all his might. A terrifying sword light slashed toward one of the giant cities. The sword light was so huge that it seemed as if it was going to cut the city in half. At the same time, the divine lords of the angel race and the blood kindred also made their moves. They attacked with two terrifying moves. The divine lords of the angel race and the blood kindred were also very powerful. They were definitely not ordinary divine lords. Even if they were not as strong as the Lord of Heaven, they were not much weaker. Kill. The heavenly soldiers and divine generals also made their moves. They activated the battle formation and blasted out terrifying divine light. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of weapons clashing resounded through the sky. The four weapons above the four giant cities shot up into the sky and collided with the attacks that were descending. However, this time the four weapons could not block the attacks from the sky. After all, there were three more divine lords attacking this time. The four weapons vibrated violently and were sent flying back. Cracks appeared on them. In the four giant cities, the experts of the Primordial Divine Lake frantically activated the array to repair the four weapons. However, the attacks of the Yale Lord of Heaven and the others arrived once again. This time, the four weapons could no longer withstand the attacks and were blasted apart. The remaining attacks landed on the light shield formed by the four cities. There was a loud explosion, but they were still blocked. Let's see how long this array can block me. The Yale Lord of Heaven stepped into the Primordial Divine Lake world overbearingly and stood in the sky. The other two divine lords also stepped forward and stood on either side of the Yale Lord of Heaven. Kill, kill, kill. The heavenly soldiers and divine generals were also closing in on the city. Attack with all your might. Break their array and destroy the primordial divine lake. Their divine lords will also die. They are no match for us, the Yale Lord of Heaven ordered. Then he made his move. A terrifying aura exploded and the sky shook violently. An unimaginably powerful pressure pressed down on the city. Fortunately, the 4 cities were protected by the array. Otherwise, the Yale Lord of Heaven and the others would not need to attack. The pressure alone would be enough to crush everyone to death. Even a peak divine emperor would not be able to withstand such an aura and pressure. Even so, Lu Ming still felt a heavy pressure. It was as if a huge rock was pressing down on his heart, making it difficult for him to breathe. Dazzling sword light slashed down on the 4 cities. Then, bright holy light accompanied by blood-red light fell. Every attack could destroy the heavens and earth. In addition, there was also the divine light formed by the heavenly soldiers and divine generals. Boom, boom, boom. These attacks bombarded the light shield formed by the array, causing the light shield to shake violently. The entire ground rumbled loudly. Lu Ming felt that the mountain under his feet was shaking violently. Fortunately, he managed to block it in the end. However, the attacks of the Yale Lord of Heaven and the others did not stop. They continued to fall. The light shield shook violently and became more and more violent. It could be seen that the light barrier was slowly dimming under the constant attacks. If this continued, the light shield would be broken sooner or later. When that time came, no one would be able to survive against the Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming's face was grave. The primordial divine lake should have a backup plan. Lu Ming muttered. He did not believe that this was all the primordial divine lake had. How could they fight against the heavenly palace with this? They should at least have a trump card. As time passed, the light shield dimmed more and more. Chapter 42:18. Lu Ming's face became heavier and heavier. He couldn't interfere in such a great battle. The gap was too big. This was a battle between the strongest forces in the universe. He wasn't qualified to participate. Sooner or later, I'll be able to participate in such a great battle. That day won't be too far away. Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, the faces of many people in Primordial Divine Lake also darkened. Boom, boom, boom. The attacks continued. The 4 cities shook more and more violently. The lake water in Primordial Divine Lake also shook violently, creating thousands of waves. Crack. With an ear-piercing sound, a crack appeared on the light shield. Although the crack wasn't big, it made the hearts of everyone in Primordial Divine Lake sink. The Grand Array couldn't hold on any longer. It had been torn apart. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the Grand Array was completely destroyed. Seeing this, Yale Lord of Heaven and the others were overjoyed. Stubborn resistance. You'll be destroyed in the end. Yale Lord of Heaven said coldly. His body was covered by the power of heaven. Each of his attacks contained destructive power. The angel race and blood race godlords also increased their attacks. Crack. Asterisk crack. Asterisk more and more cracks appeared on the light shield. Terrifying energy seeped in through the cracks. Some people couldn't dodge in time and were hit by this energy. Their bodies exploded and they died on the spot. It's over. Am I really going to die here today? Is Primordial Divine Lake going to be destroyed? Indeed, we can't fight against the Heavenly Palace. Since ancient times, those who fought against the Heavenly Palace didn't have a good ending. Many people lamented. Some even began to doubt their own beliefs. Don't panic. The godlords will come and save us. That's right. The incipient godlords will come and save us. Some leaders in the 4 cities shouted, trying to calm the soldiers down. You're still hoping that they'll come and save you? Ridiculous. They can't even protect themselves now. Yale Lord of Heaven sneered and continued to attack. More and more cracks appeared on the light shield. In the end, they covered it like a spider web. It seemed like it would collapse at any moment. Right at this critical moment, a violent roar suddenly resounded from the Primordial Divine Lake. Crash. In the Primordial Divine Lake, huge waves surged into the sky. Amidst the huge waves, a figure appeared, standing tall and upright. Incipient God Realm. Someone exclaimed. Incipient God Realm was the honorific title for the primitive God Spirit. Suddenly, another primordial divine spirit appeared in the Primordial Divine Lake. Lu Ming's heart trembled violently. No, it's not a real primordial divine spirit. It's just a soul. Suddenly Lu Ming's eyes widened as he realized that this primordial divine spirit wasn't corporeal, nor was it a living primordial divine spirit. The primitive divine spirit roared and waved his fist towards Yale, the Lord of Heaven in the sky. His power was very strong and very shocking. Humph, you're just a divine soul and you want to fight with me? Then let me completely destroy you. Yale shouted coldly and slashed down with his sword. With a boom, the primordial divine spirit's divine soul was pushed back. A sword wound appeared on his fist as it was split in half. However, his injured fist recovered quickly. All kinds of sounds came from the primordial divine lake. Then huge figures appeared in the primordial divine lake continuously. All of them were primordial divine spirits, but they weren't corporeal. They were all divine souls of primordial divine spirits. There were more than 30 of them. Some of them were in human form, some were in beast form, and some were in bird form. From afar, it looked as if dozens of primordial divine spirits had appeared in the sky above the primordial divine lake. It was a spectacular scene. The appearance of dozens of primordial divine spirits shocked the people in the 4 cities. Then there was a burst of cheers. Excited, too excited. The grand array was already on the verge of collapse. Now that dozens of primordial divine spirits had appeared, they might be saved. Lu Ming was also delighted. There are so many primordial divine spirits. Legend has it that the primordial divine lake gave birth to 72 primordial divine spirits. Are they left behind by these primordial divine spirits? Lu Ming's mind was racing. At the same time, Yale Lord of Heaven and the others were also shocked. No matter who it was, they would be shocked to see dozens of primordial divine spirits suddenly. However, Yale Lord of Heaven quickly adjusted. Humph, they're just divine spirits. Watch me kill them all. Heavenly punishment power. Yale Lord of Heaven roared. An even more terrifying aura spread out from his body. The battle sword in his hand was covered with a layer of terrifying power. That was the heavenly punishment power. The elites of the heavenly human race could control the power of the heavens. The power of the heavens was a very powerful force. However, the power of the heavens could still be evolved. The power of the heavens could be transformed into 4 more terrifying forces, which were the heavenly punishment power, heavenly extermination power, and heavenly ferocious power. Only the top monsters of the heavenly human race could control these 4 forces. Back in the great ancient world, Yiyu, who fought with Lu Ming, could control some of the heavenly punishment power. The Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human race were undoubtedly the top monsters of the heavenly human race. It was not surprising that they could control these 4 forces. For example, Damning Lord of Heaven could control the heavenly punishment power. Yale Lord of Heaven could also control the heavenly punishment power. Swoosh. With a slash of his sword, a sword light that contained the heavenly punishment power slashed downward. The divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits roared. Their huge bodies soared into the sky and unleashed all kinds of attacks. The divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits were naturally much weaker than when they were at their peak. Any one of them was no match for Yale Lord of Heaven. However, there were too many of them. If 1 was not enough, there would be 2. If 2 were not enough, there would be 3. A few divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits rushed forward and successfully blocked Yale Lord of Heaven's attack. The other divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits charged toward the 2 divine masters of the angel race and the blood clan, as well as the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. Yale Lord of Heaven and the other 2 divine masters were strong enough to block the attacks for a while. However, the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were not so strong. Although they had formed an array, they could not block such a powerful attack. A primordial divine spirit of the primordial divine spirit in the shape of a giant bull stepped on the air and charged over. Its scimitar-like horns crashed into the array of the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, causing the array to shake violently. Some of the weaker heavenly soldiers screamed in pain. Their bodies exploded and they died on the spot. Many of the heavenly soldiers with higher cultivation also vomited blood and were severely injured. However, a primordial divine spirit of the primordial divine spirit that looked like a phoenix flew over and sprinkled a large amount of flames. The temperature of this flame was shockingly high. It burned the formation and many people's terrifying power passed through the formation and killed them. In a few moments at least 1,000 heavenly soldiers had died. All of you retreat first. Yale Lord of Heaven shouted. He and the other 2 divine masters resisted with all their might, forcing the other heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals to retreat. Chapter 42:19. Yale Lord of Heaven roared as he and the other two divine masters fought back with all their might. They temporarily blocked all the divine souls of the primitive divine spirits. The heavenly soldiers and divine generals took the opportunity to retreat out of the world wall. The divine souls of the primitive divine spirits roared as they continued to attack. Yale Lord of Heaven and the other two divine masters were finally unable to resist and were hit. They coughed up blood and retreated. However, they were powerful and were only injured. It would not be easy to kill them. They used their movement techniques and quickly retreated out of the world wall. The divine souls of the primitive divine spirits did not chase after them. They just hovered above the primitive divine lake. Great! Great! The people in the 4 cities of the primitive divine lake cheered excitedly when they saw this scene. Obviously, most of them did not know that the primitive divine lake had such a trump card. Dozens of primitive divine spirits were holding down the fort. This was a powerful pressure that made it difficult for the people from the heavenly palace to get close. Outside the world wall, Yale Lord of Heaven's face was gloomy as his eyes flashed with cold light. Lord of Heaven, what should we do? The divine master of the angel race asked. Today the primitive divine lake must be destroyed. The Lord God's heart must not fall into their hands. Otherwise, they might give birth to an invincible person. This cannot happen. I will send a message back to the heavenly palace and ask the heavenly palace to send more experts. We must destroy the primitive divine lake no matter what. Yale Lord of Heaven said coldly as his glabella glowed. He was activating the dreamy heavenly jade to send a message to the experts of the heavenly palace. A while later. All right, the heavenly palace has responded. Soon there will be divine master experts coming to reinforce us. Yale Lord of Heaven said. On the side, the angels and blood tribe powerhouses all smiled. They waited quietly. The people in the 4 cities of the primitive divine lake had no choice but to wait with the other party. With their strength, they could only stay in the cities and use the array to defend themselves, let alone attack. As for the primordial divine spirits, they seemed to be only defending and would not rush out to attack. They could only wait and hope that the divine Lord Realm experts of the primordial divine lake could defeat the enemy and rush back to reinforce them. However, many people's hearts were heavy. They knew that this time they were in danger. The heavenly palace had come prepared. Could the strong cultivators of the primitive divine lake really defeat them? Time passed by second by second. Soon half an hour had passed. Buzz buzz. Suddenly ripples appeared in the void outside the world barrier, and then one figure after another appeared out of thin air. There were more than 30 figures in total. Among them, more than 10 were from the heavenly human tribe, and the others were from other races. For example, the angel race, blood tribe, demon master, battle saint tribe, Buddha race, etc. Most of them were from the top 10 races, and their auras were exceptionally terrifying. Divine masters, they were all divine masters. The hearts of everyone at the primordial divine lake started to sink. In the heavenly palace, another 30 or so divine masters had appeared. How were they supposed to fight? It's great that you are here. There are still some primordial divine spirit souls in the primordial divine lake. They are quite troublesome. Let's deal with them together. Yale Lord of Heaven said. Looks like the power of the primordial divine lake has exceeded our initial expectations. As expected, we can't let these traitors stay for long. We have to get rid of them as soon as possible to prevent future trouble. Another middle-aged heavenly human tribe said coldly with a cold gaze. This man was also a heaven monarch. His name was Yifu. He was extremely powerful and had a cold and domineering personality. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and charged into the world barrier. A powerful aura exploded from his body. He held a long staff in his hand, and his aura was like a rainbow as he directly smashed down with it. Instantly, a huge staff struck down at the primordial divine lake, causing the entire primordial divine lake to shake. The divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits roared and shot into the sky. Their bodies were covered in dazzling divine light as they charged toward Yifu. Kill? Yale Lord of Heaven and the other divine masters also attacked. The attacks from both sides collided in the void, creating a destructive force. The 4 cities below quickly activated their arrays to defend themselves. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion occurred. The entire primordial divine lake world seemed to be destroyed. The 4 cities shook violently and the primordial divine lake surged with huge waves. More than 30 divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits were smashed into the primordial divine lake. They were no match for them. After all, These were only the divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits. Their combat power wasn't at its peak and they weren't a match for a divine master. Facing a similar number of divine masters and Lord of Heaven, the divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits were no match for them and were crushed. The divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits struggled and shot into the sky again, pouncing toward the divine masters of the heavenly palace. The two sides started to fight again. Unfortunately, the divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits were no match for them. After a few blows, some of the divine spirits couldn't take it anymore. Bam! A bull-shaped primordial divine spirit was hit by Lord of Heaven's long rod and its entire head exploded. Then the long rod pressed down and the bull-shaped primordial divine spirit's body exploded, turning into rays of light and appearing in another place. However, the light was much dimmer and its energy was weaker. Although it was a divine spirit of the primordial divine spirit and could be restored even if its body was shattered, its energy would be destroyed and it would become weaker and weaker. After a while it would disappear completely. I have killed a living primordial divine spirit in the past, let alone a divine spirit. You want to stop me? Ridiculous. Lord of Heaven sneered as he waved his long rod and charged forward. A few divine spirits of the primordial divine spirits were knocked away and his long rod hit the bull-shaped primordial divine spirit's divine spirit. Bam! The bull-shaped primordial divine spirit's divine spirit exploded again, turning into rays of light and trying to form in another place. Divine punishment. Disappear from me. Lord of Heaven yelled coldly as he grabbed with one hand. Suddenly, endless white lightning appeared and filled the sky, enveloping the bull-shaped primordial divine spirit. This was one of the 4 strongest powers of heaven, the power of divine punishment. Back then, Yu had also controlled the power of divine punishment, but compared to Lord of Heaven, it was much weaker. It was like comparing a candle flame to the moon. Sizzle. Sizzle. The boundless power of divine punishment enveloped the bull-shaped primordial divine spirit's divine spirit. The bull-shaped primordial divine spirit let out an angry roar, but the roar immediately disappeared. The bull-shaped primordial divine spirit's divine spirit was completely destroyed. On the other side, Yale Lord of Heaven had also destroyed a primordial divine spirit's divine spirit. Normally speaking, a primordial divine spirit's divine spirit would exist for eternity and would be difficult to destroy. However, heavenly monarch realm existences were too strong. They controlled the strongest power of the heavens and their power was boundless. They could destroy everything. Even a primordial divine spirit's divine spirit would not be able to withstand it. After destroying a primordial divine spirit's divine spirit, they continued to kill the next one. Chapter 42:20. The primordial divine spirits were unable to withstand the attacks of the heavenly palace's experts. They were completely suppressed. As the Lord of Heaven obliterated the primordial divine spirits, the battle became even more one-sided. The battle continued, but the number of primordial divine spirits continued to dwindle. Every few minutes, a primordial divine spirit would be obliterated. Soon, the number of primordial divine spirits decreased from more than 30 to about 20. It's over. We can't hold on any longer. We're going to lose. Is there another trump card in the primordial divine lake? I remember that the primordial divine lake gave birth to 72 primordial divine spirits. The hearts of the people in the 4 cities were extremely heavy. Some of them were even in despair. Some of them hoped that the primordial divine lake still had another trump card. Legend had it that 72 primordial divine spirits were born in the primordial divine lake. Would there be 72 primordial divine spirits? Right now, only 30 or so of them had appeared. Would there be another 30 or so of them? Many people hoped so. Unfortunately, they were destined to be disappointed. The primordial divine lake did not move. No new primordial divine spirits appeared, and no other trump cards appeared. Seeing the primordial divine spirits being obliterated one after another, many people were in despair. Was the primordial divine lake really going to be destroyed today? Boom. At this moment, the void shattered. A huge figure emerged from the void and threw a punch at one of the heavenly palace's lords. That Lord God was caught off guard. He was hit and his body exploded into 2. The 2 halves of his body flew out and merged together. However, his face was pale and his aura was weak. He had been severely injured. Hong, you're courting death. Yale Lord of Heaven roared and slashed with his sword. That's right. The huge figure that suddenly appeared was the primordial divine spirit Hong. Boom. Heaven Monarch Yale and Hong, exchanged a blow. Just as the two of them exchanged a blow, the void flashed, and a terrifying energy burst out like a sharp sword, piercing towards the primordial godly spirit Hong. This energy was too strong, too fast, and too ruthless. Hong had just exchanged a blow with Yale, so there was no way he could avoid it. Blood splattered everywhere as Hong's abdomen was pierced through by this blast of energy. Hong's massive body was sent flying backwards. His body, which was even larger than a planet, had a huge hole blasted open as blood flowed out. Not far away, a figure stepped out, his golden hair fluttering in the wind. It was the Lord of Heaven from the Great Dream. "Your opponent is me." The Great Dream Lord of Heaven spoke coldly as the power of Great Dream emanated from him. However, a lion's roar rang out, blocking the Great Dream force. The primordial divine spirit lion appeared and pounced towards the Great Dream Lord of Heaven. At the same time, Hong let out a furious roar and launched a counterattack. The two powerful primitive god spirits fought against the Lord of Heaven from the Great Dream realm, breaking through the void and leaving this place. "Today no one can save you," the Yale Lord of Heaven said coldly. "Ah, that's not good." Enemy attack. As soon as the Yale Lord of Heaven's voice trailed off, the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals outside the world wall exclaimed. This made the Yale Lord of Heaven's face darken as he was very unhappy. "I just said a few words to show off and you're already yelling at me. What's the meaning of this?" He turned his head and was about to reprimand them, but as if he had seen something shocking, his face changed drastically and his pupils suddenly shrank. At this time, the other overlords of the heavenly palace also looked outside the world wall and their faces changed. Because in that direction a planet was flying towards them rapidly. If it was an ordinary planet, it wouldn't be a big deal. There were too many planets in the universe. However, this planet was different. It was too big. It was many times bigger than an ordinary planet. When it rushed over, it let out an earth-shattering dragon roar. The Dragon Clan's mother planet? What's going on? Why did the Dragon Clan's mother planet fly here? Several Divine Master Realm existences roared, their voices filled with bewilderment. Below, Lu Ming was also dumbfounded. That's right, the planet that was flying towards them was the Dragon Clan's mother planet. The Dragon Clan's mother planet had flown here. This was beyond everyone's expectations. The Dragon Clan's mother planet was extremely huge. As it flew, it let out an earth-shattering dragon roar that shook the universe. The huge planet was aiming at the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. If they were hit, these heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals would be crushed to death. "Dragon Clan, you're courting death." The Yale Lord of Heaven roared and stepped out. In a flash, he left the primeval divine lake world and appeared in front of the Dragon Clan's mother planet. "Stop the Dragon Clan's mother planet first." The Yef Lord of Heaven also spoke. In a flash, he also left the place and stood side by side with the Yale Lord of Heaven. The other overlords also appeared behind them. "I let you guys go back then, but now you're here to join in the fun. Then I'll kill you all," the Yale Lord of Heaven said coldly. The battle sword in his hand gave off a dazzling glow as he slashed at the Dragon Clan's mother planet. "Kill." The Yef Lord of Heaven also roared. He slashed out with his long rod. It was so huge that it covered the entire Dragon Clan's mother planet. At the same time, the other 30 overlords also attacked. With so many overlords attacking together, the power was too shocking. The boundless starry sky was turned into darkness as everything was destroyed. If this attack was left alone, it could instantly destroy a galaxy. Although there was 1,000 dragons array on the Dragon Clan's mother planet, it could not withstand such a terrifying attack. It would definitely be destroyed in an instant. Once the array was destroyed, even if the Dragon Clan's mother planet could not be destroyed, the living beings on the Dragon Clan's mother planet would definitely die. At this moment, a terrifying dragon roar came from the Dragon Clan's mother planet. This dragon roar was earth-shattering and instantly spread out a few galaxies. Then a huge black dragon appeared on the Dragon Clan's mother planet. This black dragon only had 5 dragon claws. It looked like a 5-clawed black dragon, but the aura that it gave off was extremely terrifying. It suppressed the starry sky and caused it to tremble. With a loud dragon roar, the black dragon flew out. Its dragon claws covered the starry sky as it stepped on it. It actually covered the attacks of the 30 overlords. Boom! A terrifying roar sounded. The huge black dragon flew back and floated above the Dragon Clan's mother planet again. However, the attacks of the several dozen divine masters had all been blocked. At this moment, the dozens of overlords, including the Yale Lord of Heaven and the others, were all stunned. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. These 30 over-living beings were all overlords. Among them there were 2 Lord of Heaven and a few other overlords. Their combat strength was not much weaker than the Lord of Heaven. With so many people joining forces, how terrifying was the power. Even the damning Lord of Heaven would not be able to block it head-on. However, the Black Dragon managed to block it. Chapter 42-21. Ao Qian, how did you recover so quickly? Yale shouted in shock. That was right. The 5-clawed black dragon that had rushed out from the dragon tribe's mother planet was Ao Qian, the World Annihilation Black Dragon. Although I haven't recovered much, it's more than enough to deal with all of you, Ao Qian said. His voice was deep and domineering. I don't believe it. You almost died back then. How can you recover from such serious injuries? You're just holding on. Let's attack together. He won't be able to last more than a few moves. Yale Lord of Heaven roared. His combat sword emitted a dazzling light as he unleashed the full power of God's punishment. Swoosh. A terrifying sword shadow slashed towards Ao Qian. God's punishment be destroyed. Yale Lord of Heaven roared as well. His long staff slashed down. One could see countless white thunderbolts on the long staff. That was the power of God's punishment. At the same time, the other divine masters also unleashed their trump cards and attacked Ao Qian. The second wave of attacks was even more violent and terrifying than the first. Ao Qian roared as his body grew rapidly. His huge dragon body twisted as he stepped out with his dragon claws. Rays of terrifying black light flew out from his dragon claws and pierced through the universe. They collided with the attacks of Yale Lord of Heaven and the others. There was a loud explosion. This time there was still no clear winner. Yale Lord of Heaven and the others' attacks were blocked. Ao Qian twisted his body and the space was torn apart. He rushed into the space and disappeared. In the next moment, a dragon claw suddenly appeared beside one of the divine masters and grabbed at him. The divine master was shocked. He wanted to break open the void and escape, but it was too late. With a bang, the divine master was torn apart by the black dragon claw. Everything was obliterated, and the divine master died on the spot. A divine master was killed just like that. Damn it. Yale Lord of Heaven and the others roared as they attacked the void with all their might. The void exploded and Ao Qian's figure was revealed. Several attacks landed on Ao Qian's body. Ao Qian's body trembled and he was sent flying. Unfortunately, it did not cause any harm to Ao Qian. Only a few shallow marks appeared on the scales on his body. Ao Qian's strength was many times stronger than when Lu Ming was on the Dragon Clan's mother planet. Back then, even with the help of the Dragon Clan's mother planet, he still couldn't deal with Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the other divine masters working together. In the end, it was Fei Huang's soul incarnation that made Yale and the others retreat. But now, Ao Qian was able to suppress Yale and the others on his own. One had to know that Yale and the others had dozens of divine master realm existences. No wonder Yale was so shocked. When Ao Qian was at his peak, Yale was naturally no match for him. When he saw Ao Qian, he would definitely turn around and run as fast as he could. However, he knew very well that Ao Qian had been severely injured in the dragon-slaying battle. Many people even thought that Ao Qian had been killed. Later on they found out that Ao Qian was still alive. But even if he wasn't dead, he was just at death's door. He was extremely weak and had barely reached the Divine Master realm. Logically speaking, it was almost impossible for him to recover from such a serious injury. But how many years had it been? How could Ao Qian have recovered to such a level? What happened? Boom. Ao Qian retreated, twisted his body, and charged toward the Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the others. His body had shrunk to only about 10 meters long, but his speed was shockingly fast. With a twist of his body, he charged toward Yale and the others like a bolt of lightning. He dodged the attacks and charged toward a Divine Master Realm expert. Whoosh. When he was close enough, Ao Qian's dragon armor flew out and slashed out like 2 curved blades. Poof. The head of the Divine Master in front flew high into the air. Blood splattered for hundreds of millions of miles and shattered the meteorite. His head was chopped off, but he was still alive. His eyes were filled with fear. He controlled the head and wanted to escape, but there were 2 dragon horns. Before he could retreat, the second dragon horn was chopped off. The head was cut in half. His soul was destroyed and he died on the spot. The second Divine Master was killed. This time the other Divine Masters were frightened. They frantically retreated to distance themselves from Ao Qian. Don't split up. Gather together. Don't give him a chance to attack us one by one. The Lord of Heaven roared. He was very fast. With a swing of his staff, streaks of white lightning burst out and hit Ao Qian's 2 dragon horns. The 2 dragon horns flew out and returned to Ao Qian's head. The Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the others took the opportunity to gather together and retreat quickly. They were like an iron bucket. Kill? Ao Qian roared and charged forward. He launched an attack and fought with the Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the others. However, the Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the others had learned their lesson this time. They gathered together and attacked and retreated together. For a time Ao Qian couldn't succeed. He could only suppress the Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the others. Just like that, the battle went on for more than 10 rounds. Neither side could do anything to the other. Who is it? Ao Qian, who was in the middle of the battle, suddenly stopped as if he had encountered something terrifying. He quickly retreated to the side of the dragon race's mother planet. His aura merged with the dragon race's mother planet. He looked around cautiously as if something terrifying was approaching. The Yale, the Lord of Heaven, and the others looked at each other. They didn't feel anything. Ao Qian, I didn't expect your spiritual senses to be so sharp. At this moment, a voice rang out in the starry sky. This voice sounded very old and full of vicissitudes. However, no one knew where it came from or where it came from. It was as if it came from all directions. Crack. Suddenly, a lightning bolt appeared above Ao Qian. A pure white lightning bolt appeared. It wasn't thick, only the size of an arm. It struck towards Ao Qian at an unimaginable speed. Facing this inconspicuous lightning bolt, Ao Qian looked as if he was facing a formidable enemy. The scales all over his body stood up like hair. Ao Qian let out an earth-shattering dragon roar. The dragon race's mother planet also trembled slightly. Endless energy surged from the dragon race's mother planet and merged with Ao Qian. Then Ao Qian clawed out with a dragon claw. This was his strongest attack in his current state. It gathered the power of the dragon race's mother planet. Boom. The dragon claw caught the pure white lightning bolt. There was an earth-shattering explosion. The endless starry sky trembled. Many living beings on the life planets looked at the starry sky in horror as if a catastrophe was about to befall them. After the violent explosion, Ao Qian's body trembled violently and he retreated. Even the dragon race's mother planet was the same. Ao Qian retreated rapidly until he was billions of miles away. One could see that Ao Qian's dragon claw was badly mutilated. It was pitch black and looked charred. Not only that, but there were also wounds on his body. One could vaguely see tiny lightning bolts swimming around. Chapter 42-22. One move, just one move, and Ao Qian was injured. Moreover, Ao Qian had gathered the power of the dragon tribe's mother planet. Otherwise, the situation would have been worse. The power of the origin source, Ao Qian muttered. His eyes were solemn. In the distant starry sky, the void trembled slightly, and a figure suddenly appeared. Seeing this figure, Ao Qian's pupils suddenly shrank. He said seriously, "It's you, old man, ancestor." As for Yale and the others, when they saw this figure, they cried out in surprise and revealed ecstatic expressions. This was a member of the celestial race, an old celestial race member. He looked extremely old. His golden hair had lost its luster and was no longer golden. It was like dry weeds growing on his head. His body was no longer straight. Instead, it was hunched over. The wrinkles on his face piled up like a mountain. His eyes were squinted, and there was no luster in them. This was an old man who looked like he would collapse at any moment. However, Ao Qian's eyes were extremely solemn. Yale and the others called him ancestor. The elder from the heavenly human tribe stood in the air and walked towards Ao Qian step by step. Ao Qian's body tensed up. He slowly retreated with the dragon tribe's mother planet. I didn't expect the primordial divine lake to lure you out. Aren't you afraid of dying in an accident? Ao Qian said coldly. The Master God's heart is no small matter. Besides, you have the forbidden body. It's worthy of an old man like me to take action. The old man chuckled, revealing 2 rows of jagged teeth. He stared at Ao Qian with his turbid eyes and said, Ao Qian, I didn't expect you to survive the battle back then. Moreover, you've recovered such combat strength. I can't let you live. Today I'll kill you once and for all. As soon as his voice fell, the old heavenly human attacked. At this moment, a terrifying aura surged out of his aged body. As soon as this aura appeared, not only the galaxy but the entire star region trembled. It was as if it could not withstand the aura of the old heavenly human tribe and trembled in front of him. At this moment he did not seem to be an old man. Instead, he seemed to be an invincible expert who dominated the world. This terrifying aura also passed through the gap in the world wall and into the primordial divine lake world. The entire primordial divine lake world was constantly trembling. The primordial divine lake's water, which had been surging with huge waves, had also calmed down without a single ripple. What a terrifying aura! How can this aura be so strong? It's several times stronger than the great Dream Lord of Heaven. How is this possible? Lu Ming was deeply shocked. The great Dream Lord of Heaven was known as one of the strongest lords of heaven in the heavenly palace. However, the aura of this heavenly human elder was several times stronger than that of the great Dream Lord of Heaven. What kind of cultivation was this? Above the Divine Master? However, according to the information he had gathered, wasn't the Divine Master realm already the pinnacle of the universe? Could there be an even stronger existence above the Divine Master realm? Was this the true trump card of the Heavenly Palace? Under the Heavenly Punishment, those who violate the rules of the Heavenly Palace will be punished. The voice of the Heavenly Human Tribe Elder rang out. Then he pointed out a finger. Sizzle, pure white thunderbolts shot out from the Elder's hand. They turned into thunderbolts that covered the sky and covered Ao Qian. Ao Qian's face was extremely solemn. He let out a roar and his body grew rapidly. In the end, he was even bigger than the Dragon Tribe's mother planet. He opened his mouth and a bead flew out of his mouth. One could see countless mystical dragons swimming within the bead. This was the treasure of the Dragon Tribe, the 10,000 Dragon Pearl. Under Ao Qian's control, the 10,000 Dragon Pearl roared and countless divine dragons flew out. They flew towards the heavenly human elder and collided with the heavenly punishment. However, the opponent was too strong, and Ao Qian's cultivation was far from his peak. Even with the help of the Dragon Clan's mother planet and the power of the 10,000 Dragons Pearl, he still couldn't stop the opponent. There were still traces of heavenly punishment that broke through Ao Qian's attack and landed on his body. Puff puff puff, blood spurted out from Ao Qian's body. The scales on his body were also broken and some of them flew out. Heavenly punishment. Unknowingly, the heavenly human elder had appeared not far from Ao Qian and broke through Ao Qian's defense. A long sword appeared in his hand. It exuded a terrifying fluctuation and slashed towards Ao Qian's head. This was the heavenly punishment, one of the 4 strongest heavenly powers. Not only did the heavenly human elder control the heavenly punishment, but he also controlled the heavenly punishment. It was extremely terrifying. Ao Qian's pupils shrank rapidly. He couldn't block this sword. However, Ao Qian didn't panic. This was because a figure appeared silently in front of Ao Qian. It was a woman. She was peerless and unparalleled in the world. Fei Huang. This woman was the immeasurable heavenly demon Fei Huang. Fei Huang lightly slapped out with her palm and slapped the celestial race elder's battle sword. Boom. There was a loud explosion that sounded like the Big Bang. A blinding light burst out from the place where the two of them clashed. It was so blinding that everyone couldn't open their eyes. Then the two figures retreated at the same time. She blocked it. Fei Huang blocked the attack of the heavenly human elder. It's her. Immeasurable heavenly demon. Forbidden. When Yale Yev and the others saw Fei Huang, they all exclaimed in shock and fear. Fei Huang, you're just a soul incarnation. Do you think you can stop me? The heavenly human elder retreated a distance and stabilized himself. He looked at Fei Huang coldly. You're also injured. You don't dare to use your full strength, right? Fei Huang chuckled. Her aura was unparalleled. Some divine masters almost lost their minds when they saw her. It's more than enough to deal with a soul incarnation like you, the heavenly human elder said. He held his sword and didn't waste any more words. He directly charged towards Fei Huang. This time there was no shocking explosion of energy. It looked like a simple sword attack. However, it was too fast. Many divine masters couldn't see it clearly. They had a feeling that they couldn't dodge this sword attack. They could only be killed. Dense demonic chi appeared on Fei Huang's body. Her palms became pitch black as if they were formed by demonic chi. She still lightly slapped out her palm. However, her speed was extremely fast. It was so fast that all the divine masters couldn't see it clearly. Bam! Their attacks collided again. This time there was only a soft sound. It was like an ordinary person slapping their palms. The two figures swayed and started fighting again. The crowd could only see the two figures colliding continuously. Then there was a soft sound. Everyone knew that this was a sign that the two of them had condensed their strength to the extreme. This was because such existences were too terrifying. Once they fought without restraint, they would destroy the heavens and earth. They would destroy a large area of the galaxy and cause a terrible disaster. Therefore they had restrained their strength to the extreme. Chapter 42-23. The battle between Fei Huang and the elder from the heavenly human tribe did not cause much of a commotion. However, the fact that they didn't cause too much of a commotion didn't mean that their attacks weren't powerful. All the divine masters present knew that if they were struck by the two of them, they would definitely die. There wouldn't be any suspense. The two of them were too fast. In the blink of an eye they had exchanged dozens of blows. After 50 blows the two of them retreated. They faced each other from a distance of billions of miles. "Old man, it looks like you can't do anything to us today." Fei Huang smiled. "It looks like I can only fight," the elder from the heavenly human tribe said. His eyes were cold. Boom. Another terrifying aura erupted from his body. This aura was several times more terrifying than before. Rich heavenly power surged out from the elder from the heavenly human tribe. At that moment, his stooped body actually straightened up. Furthermore, he was rapidly growing taller. The wrinkles on his face were quickly disappearing. His skin became glossy and his turbid eyes were shining with a golden light. His golden hair became dazzling and fluttered in the wind. In an instant, the elder from the heavenly human tribe became younger. He turned into a young man in his 20s. "Aren't you afraid of the backlash from your injuries?" Fei Huang's face became serious. The demonic qi on her body became denser. "It won't take much time to kill you," the elder from the heavenly human tribe said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved. Swoosh. He charged toward Fei Huang at an even faster speed than before. His combat sword whistled and slashed toward Fei Huang's head with terrifying power. Fei Huang's face was serious. She took a light step forward. Suddenly, an invisible wave spread out. This was a realm. The place that it covered was Fei Huang's world. Then she waved her palms and slapped out. Clang clang. The two exchanged a few more moves, but this time, Fei Huang was completely no match for him and fell into a disadvantageous position. They had only exchanged a few more moves, and her figure retreated explosively. A hideous wound appeared on her body. However, this was Fei Huang's spiritual incarnation. It was not a life of flesh and blood. It would not bleed. However, its luster was much dimmer and its aura was weaker. Fei Huang's power was being destroyed. "Fei Huang, destroying this soul avatar must have affected your main body quite a bit, right?" the elder from the celestial tribe said coldly as he continued to attack Fei Huang. Brr. On the other side, Ao Qian roared angrily. He took out the 10,000 Dragon's Pearl and attacked the heavenly human tribe elder with all his might. Fei Huang also took the opportunity to counterattack. Both of them unleashed their strongest attacks in their respective states. "Stubborn resistance," the celestial tribe elder said coldly. The battle sword in his right hand did not stop. He continued to unleash the power of heavenly punishment and slashed at Fei Huang. As for his left hand, he pressed down on the air, and the power of heavenly punishment burst out. Streaks of pure white lightning blasted towards Ao Qian. After 2 consecutive explosions, Fei Huang and Ao Qian's figures retreated rapidly. Fei Huang was hit again and the light of her soul incarnation dimmed even more. Ao Qian was in an even worse state. The 10,000 Dragon Pearl had been sent flying back, and his body had been pierced through. His dragon body had almost been split in two. He was seriously injured and he kept coughing up blood. "Haha, Ao Qian, Fei Huang, go to hell." Seeing this, Yale laughed maniacally. "What taboo? In front of the patriarch, only death awaits you." Yi Fu, the Lord of Heaven, also smiled. As for the divine masters of the other races, their eyes were filled with fear. Their fear of the heavenly palace grew even stronger. The reason why they were so obedient to the heavenly palace was not because they were afraid of the Lord of Heaven. Although the heavenly palace's Lord of Heaven was powerful, it was not impossible to fight against them. The most terrifying people in the heavenly palace were those old fellows. "Fei Huang, send your soul incarnation to hell first." The heavenly human tribe elder did not want to waste any time. He was injured and could not maintain his peak state for a long time. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. He had to end this quickly and completely eliminate Fei Huang and Ao Qian. "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you," Fei Huang said lightly. Her body moved and suddenly disappeared from the spot. When she reappeared, she was already in the primordial divine lake world, standing in the air above the primordial divine lake. "Come out, Master God's heart," Fei Huang said softly. She reached out a hand and grabbed at the center of the primordial divine lake. Whoosh! A heart flew out from the primordial divine lake. This heart was the Master God's heart that God Lord Dream Void had brought out from the heavenly palace. Dong dong dong. The Master God's heart beat violently like a war drum. Boundless life energy emanated from it. Fei Huang took the Master God's heart and flew out of the world wall, appearing in the starry sky. A violent roar came from the Master God's heart. Then it emitted a blinding red light. Within the blinding red light, a gigantic primordial divine spirit appeared. This primordial divine spirit was even larger than Hong and Lion from before. Just one of his eyes was as big as a planet. Standing in the starry sky, stars could revolve around his body. The moment this primordial divine spirit appeared, he grabbed with his hand. A huge mountain appeared and smashed directly at the heavenly human tribe elder. Everywhere it passed, the starry sky was destroyed and turned into chaos. The heavenly human tribe elder's pupils contracted rapidly. He roared angrily and slashed with his sword. Boom! Their attacks collided, creating a terrifying shockwave. Then the heavenly human tribe elder retreated rapidly. The primordial divine spirit also retreated rapidly. This move was a draw. "What's going on?" A god lord from the heavenly palace exclaimed. He couldn't believe what he had seen. He couldn't understand why such a terrifying existence had suddenly appeared in the primordial divine lake. "It's the Master God's heart." Fei Huang activated the power of the Master God's heart and allowed the original owner of the Master God's heart to appear in the world temporarily. Yi Fu, the Lord of Heaven, said with a serious expression. "The original owner of the Master God's heart? A Master God?" Many God Masters sucked in a breath of cold air. Anyone who knew about the primordial divine spirits knew that Master God was the title given to the strongest primordial divine spirit. Among the primordial divine spirits, only the strongest ones could be called Master Gods. Master Gods were extremely powerful. In the incipient God era, they were the true rulers of the universe. God Lords were like ants in front of a Master God. They could be crushed to death with one finger. Now, Fei Huang had activated the power of the Master God's heart and turned into a Master God. One could imagine how terrifying she was. "It's just a heart. I don't believe it can fight against me." The heavenly human tribe elder roared. His golden hair fluttered in the wind. His aura reached its peak. With the power of heavenly punishment in his right hand and heavenly punishment in his left, he stepped forward. His body continued to grow until he was even larger than a planet. He stepped toward the Master God. Fei Huang stood on the Master God's head. Her body emitted mysterious energy waves as she maintained the Master God's form. The Master God held a mountain in his hand and charged toward the heavenly human tribe elder. The two invincible existences fought fiercely. Chapter 42-24. Fei Huang controlled the Lord God's heart and summoned the Lord God to fight with the heavenly human elder. Meanwhile, Ao Qian took the opportunity to charge toward the primordial divine lake with the Dragon Clan's mother planet. "Stop him!" The Yale Lord of Heaven roared and attacked with all his might. The other Divine Lord Realm experts also attacked with all their might. Dozens of terrifying attacks attacked Ao Qian in an attempt to stop him. However, Ao Qian took out the 10,000 Dragon Pearl and used the Dragon Clan's mother planet to launch a terrifying attack. The 10,000 Dragon Pearl turned into the size of a planet and attacked. The attacks of the two sides collided and exploded with a shocking explosion. Then, the Yale Lord of Heaven and the others retreated. Facing Ao Qian, who used the 10,000 Dragon Pearl and used the power of the Dragon Clan's mother planet, Yale and the others couldn't stop him even if they worked together. Many of them coughed out blood and retreated with injuries. No one could stop Ao Qian. Ao Qian brought the Dragon Clan's mother planet and approached the primordial divine lake. Rumble. The void exploded and the space was torn apart, revealing a pitch-black space. Ao Qian brought the Dragon Clan's mother planet and charged into the dark space. If one could see through space, they would be able to clearly see that the Dragon Clan's mother planet and the primordial divine lake world were very close. Activate the array and push the primordial divine lake world toward the universe ruins. Ao Qian's voice spread throughout the primordial divine lake world. The universe ruins. Yes, to the universe ruins. In the 4 cities of the primordial divine lake world, someone shouted. Swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, the space above the primordial divine lake was torn apart and figures appeared. They were the divine lord realm experts of the primordial divine lake. They could see the figures of the primordial divine spirits Hong and Shi. However, the experts of the heavenly palace also followed closely behind. Don't even think about leaving. Our battle isn't over yet. The damning Lord of Heaven appeared. He was unparalleled and domineering as he continued to attack Hong and Shi. At this moment, a dragon roar sounded. Ao Qian took out the 10,000 dragon pearl and attacked the damning Lord of Heaven. Wherever the 10,000 dragons pearl passed, the great dream Lord of Heaven's great dream force instantly collapsed. The great dream Lord of Heaven's expression fell, and he used all of his strength to block, but he was still sent flying by the 10,000 dragon pearl, and he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. Big Dream Lord of Heaven was known as one of the strongest lords of heaven in the heavenly palace. He was already standing at the peak of the divine lord realm. However, after Ao Qian had used the 10,000 dragon pearl and borrowed the power of the dragon clan's mother planet, Ao Qian's strength had already surpassed that of a god master. No matter how strong the great dream lord of heaven was, he was no match for Ao Qian. I'll stop them. You guys work together to push the primeval divine lake towards the ruins of the universe. There will be people there to receive you. Ao Qian said. Attack. The divine lord realm experts of the primordial divine lake didn't hesitate to enter the 4 cities. Then they activated their own power and coordinated with the array to push the primordial divine lake world through the dark void and towards the universe ruins. They had to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if more experts from the heavenly palace were to come. The Dragon Clan's mother planet followed closely behind the primordial divine lake world. Stop them. Don't let them succeed. The great dream lord of heaven and the others shouted angrily. Altogether, there were 70 to 80 divine lord realm experts rushing towards the primordial divine lake world. They wanted to completely destroy the primordial divine lake world. Ao Qian attacked. The 10,000 dragon pearl shone brightly. Hundreds of dragon shadows rushed out from the 10,000 dragon pearl. Although these dragon shadows weren't real divine dragons, they were very powerful. They kept fighting with the divine lords of the heavenly palace. In an instant they managed to hold back so many divine lords. Of course, this was because Ao Qian's strength hadn't truly reached the realm above the divine lord realm. He was only slightly above the divine lord realm. Otherwise, even if there were 70 to 80 divine lords from the heavenly palace, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. Ao Qian's strength was far from his peak. However, it was enough to hold back the experts from the heavenly palace. The experts from the primordial divine lake didn't have to worry about the situation outside. They pushed the primordial divine lake world with all their might. The primordial divine lake world and the Dragon Clan's mother planet traveled through the dark void. They flew towards the edge of the universe at an astonishing speed. They flew towards the ruins of the universe. Fei Huang controlled the Lord God's heart and continued to fight with the heavenly human elder. As time passed, the two of them had exchanged countless blows. Suddenly, the two of them stopped fighting and stood in the starry sky. They weren't far from the primordial divine lake world. The primordial divine lake world flew towards the ruins of the universe at an astonishing speed. However, when Fei Huang and the heavenly human elder were fighting, they intentionally followed the primordial divine lake world. Therefore, the distance between them didn't widen. Fei Huang, even the power of the Lord God's heart can't withstand such exhaustion. You can't hold on for much longer, right? The heavenly human elder said. You don't have to test me. The one who can't hold on is you. If you continue to fight, your injuries will be uncontrollable. By then only death will await you, Fei Huang chuckled. Her face was calm. However, the heavenly human elder's face darkened. Fei Huang was right. He was indeed seriously injured. Not only could he not use his full strength, but even if he could, he wouldn't be able to fight for too long. Otherwise, his injuries would be uncontrollable. After a moment of silence, the heavenly human elder made a decision. All of you come back. There's no need to continue attacking. The heavenly human elder spoke. Of course, he was talking to the powerhouses of the heavenly palace. Hearing the heavenly human elder's words, the powerhouses of the heavenly palace didn't dare to disobey. Their bodies swayed and they left the primordial divine lake world. They stopped fighting with Ao Qian and appeared behind the heavenly human elder. Ancestor, why aren't we continuing to attack? Big Dream Lord of Heaven asked. She was very unwilling to give up. We're almost at the ruins of the universe. When we get there we won't be able to do anything to them. I think Fei Huang's true body might be there, the heavenly human elder said. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the powerhouses of the heavenly palace changed drastically. Fei Huang's true body made them terrified. Fei Huang was only a soul incarnation, but she could already kill them. How terrifying would her true body be? In the battle back then, some people had witnessed Fei Huang's true combat strength. It was extremely terrifying. Countless powerhouses of the heavenly palace had died in Fei Huang's hands. Even more than one invincible existence above the Almighty had died in Fei Huang's hands. This was a true taboo. If Fei Huang's true body was really in the ruins of the universe, they wouldn't be able to withstand a single slap from Fei Huang. But Ancestor, that Mu Yun who has the forbidden body, sneaked into the heavenly palace and stole the opportunity of our heavenly palace. Now he has slipped away safely. If this news spreads, it will be a great blow to the prestige of our heavenly palace. Big Dream Lord of Heaven said. Although the other Lord of Heaven didn't say anything, it was obvious from their expressions that they had the same concerns. Mu Yun, a junior, first sneaked into the heavenly palace, then betrayed the heavenly palace and left safely. What did he think the heavenly palace was? A backyard? This kind of thing couldn't happen. Chapter 42-25. They could let Primordial Divine Lake World go but not Mu Yun. If word got out, it would be a great blow to the Heavenly Palace's prestige. Besides, Mu Yun had a forbidden body. This was even more important than the entire Primordial Divine Lake World. He couldn't be allowed to develop a forbidden body. Throughout history, any forbidden body that matured was a disaster for the Heavenly Palace. The Lord of the Primordial Divine Court, the immeasurable heavenly demon Flying Phoenix, and that Tengai, each of them caused great damage to the Heavenly Palace. Therefore they couldn't let Mu Yun go. Don't worry. Since he has entered the Heavenly Palace and put on the Heavenly Soldier armor, he can't get away. The Heavenly Human Elder sneered as if he had the Pearl of Wisdom in his hands. But Ancestral Patriarch, the forbidden power in the Heavenly Soldier armor was destroyed by the forbidden power. Damning Lord of Heaven said. It doesn't matter. As long as he stays in the Heavenly Soldier armor, he can't escape from me. Just watch. The Heavenly Human Elder said. As soon as he finished speaking, he reached out a hand and grabbed at the Primordial Divine Lake World. At this moment in the Primordial Divine Lake World, Lu Ming still hadn't calmed down. Everything that had happened today was too shocking. It was rare to see Divine Masters, but today more than 100 of them had appeared. This was really shocking. In addition, people who seemed to have surpassed the Divine Master level had also appeared and displayed the power of the universe. This was an eye-opener for Lu Ming. It also showed Lu Ming the tip of the iceberg of the Heavenly Palace's power. It could be said that today's battle had a great impact on Lu Ming. It showed him the peak power of the primitive universe, and it also motivated him and gave him more goals. I'm still far from the Divine Master level. My first goal is to break through the Divine Emperor level. Then, step by step, I'll reach the Divine Master level. I'll reach the Divine Master level sooner or later. It's not that far away. Lu Ming clenched his fists, full of motivation. Generally speaking, the Godly Master realm was the pinnacle of combat power in the universe. In the universe, most people thought that the Divine Master was the limit of the Divine State. They didn't know that there was a realm above the Divine Master. If Lu Ming hadn't seen the great battle between Fei Huang and the Heavenly Human Tribe Elder today, he wouldn't have known that there was an even more terrifying existence above the Divine Master. Right, what kind of place is the universe ruins? Another question popped up in Lu Ming's mind. He had naturally heard Ao Qian's roar earlier. However, this was the first time he had heard the term, cosmic ruins. Just as Lu Ming's imagination was running wild, a sudden change occurred. A suit of battle armor suddenly flew out of one of his rings of holding. It was the Heavenly Soldier battle armor. What happened? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He had no intention of taking out the Celestial Soldier armor, so why did it fly out on its own? Not good. Lu Ming, retreat. In his sea of consciousness, Bone Devil roared in shock. Lu Ming instinctively wanted to retreat, but it was too late. The Celestial Soldier armor charged directly at Lu Ming and covered Lu Ming's body like chains, locking Lu Ming in place. Open up. Lu Ming roared and unleashed all of his forbidden power, trying to break free. However, he couldn't move at all. The Celestial Soldier armor didn't move at all. It was firm and immortal and he couldn't break free at all. At the same time, the celestial soldier armor produced an irresistible force and flew Lu Ming toward the gap in the world wall at an astonishing speed. Stay. Fei Huang's expression changed. She reached out her palm and a huge palm grabbed at Lu Ming, trying to stop Lu Ming. Fei Huang, if you attack, I'll kill him directly. The voice of the heavenly human tribe elder rang out. In the next moment, a terrifying energy emerged from the celestial soldier armor and pressed down on Lu Ming from the outside. In an instant, Lu Ming felt as if his body was about to explode from the pressure. Blood seeped out from the surface of his skin. Fei Huang's outstretched palm was forcefully pulled back. Her face was gloomy, but she knew very well that if she attacked forcefully she could stop Lu Ming. However, before she could stop Lu Ming, the other party could kill Lu Ming first. Now, Lu Ming's life was completely under the control of the heavenly human tribe elder. With this pause, Lu Ming had already flown out of the primeval divine lake world's world wall and into the starry sky. He flew toward the heavenly human tribe elder at an astonishing speed. Bone Devil, take my storage ring and little ball. Hurry up and leave. Lu Ming roared. At the same time, his glabella shone and Bone Devil's body flew out. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Rays of light shot out from Lu Ming's glabella. The mysterious ice rod, the gale pearl and the storage ring all flew toward Bone Devil. Even if he was captured by the Heavenly Palace, he would not let the Heavenly Palace take advantage of him. The Heavenly Palace could forget about getting the treasures on him. Anyway, he still had his past body. Even if he died in the hands of the Heavenly Palace, these treasures could still be handed over to his past body. His past body and present body were one. As long as his past body was still there, he would be fine. In the future, if he continued to cultivate the art of severing 3 corpses, he could still sever his present and future. His body was being controlled, but Bone Devil and Qiuqiu were not. Bone Devil kept Lu Ming's storage ring and treasures and little ball flew out. You, Qiuqiu stared at Lu Ming, reluctant to part with him. Hurry up and leave. Let's go. Lu Ming roared. Another ray of light flew out from his glabella. That was the origin ancient character Battle, which was also kept by Bone Devil. However, to Lu Ming's surprise, there were 2 other things that Lu Ming could not fly out no matter how hard he tried. They were the purple copper coffin and the archaic heavenly stone. These 2 things shrunk rapidly in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. In the end, they became smaller than the tiniest particles. He could not even detect them with his spiritual senses, let alone with the naked eye. If they were not in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness and Lu Ming was connected to these 2 treasures, he would not be able to detect them. If you want to leave, stay. The heavenly human elder said coldly. He had already seen the origin ancient character Battle. Although reaching his level, the origin ancient characters were no longer of much use to him. However, it could be used to nurture the younger generation. The origin ancient character was still very useful. He could not let it slip away from Lu Ming's hands. He reached out a big hand and grabbed at Lu Ming. Hurry up and leave. Lu Ming roared. Go. Gu Mo roared angrily and brought Qiuqiu to the primordial divine lake world. However, with Bone Devil's strength, how could he escape from the hands of the heavenly human tribe? However, at that moment, an enormous mountain descended from the sky and smashed onto the heavenly human clan's old man's hand. That mountain directly knocked the old man's hand back. It was Fei Huang. She controlled the Master God's heart to attack. After pushing back the heavenly human tribe elder, Fei Huang reached out and grabbed Bone Devil. Interesting? Fei Huang glanced at Bone Devil and muttered. There are no advertisements on the website. Chapter 42-26. At the same time, Lu Ming had already flown to the heavenly human elder and was under his control. Let's go. The heavenly human elder glanced at Fei Huang coldly. Then he took Lu Ming and took a step forward, disappearing from the spot. The other divine lords of the celestial palace, as well as the celestial soldiers and divine generals, flew into the air and disappeared. Fei Huang didn't chase after them. She knew that Lu Ming had fallen into the heavenly human elder's hands. It was impossible for her to take him back unscathed, unless her true body attacked. But it was impossible now. What a pity. The primordial divine spirits of the primordial divine lake, the divine lords and divine lord Meng Su all sighed. They all knew that Lu Ming had a taboo body. The taboo body was supposed to have a bright future. Once it matured, it would be a great enemy of the heavenly palace. But now it had been taken by the heavenly palace. A taboo body that had been taken by the heavenly palace was most likely doomed. Kid, I hope you'll be blessed. I can't see your fate. Just like that Tang guy, I believe you'll be able to turn misfortune into fortune. Fei Huang whispered as she looked in the direction the heavenly palace left. Then she waved her hand and the Divine Lord's body disappeared. The Divine Lord's heart floated in the air again, held in Fei Huang's hand. Fei Huang entered the primordial divine lake. Let's go. Let's go to the universe ruins, Fei Huang said. Immediately, a few Divine Lord elites began to repair the gap in the world barrier. The others continued to push the primordial divine lake toward the universe ruins. In a huge secret chamber in the dreamy heavenly palace, the walls and floor of the secret chamber were covered with runes. In the middle of the secret chamber was a stone platform. The runes on the stone platform were the most concentrated. It was clearly the center of the formation. At this moment, Lu Ming was sitting cross-legged on the stone platform. His body was covered with runes. He was completely under control. On the side, the heavenly human tribe elder, the great dream lord of heaven, and a few other lord of heaven looked at Lu Ming. Let's begin. Let's attack together and extract the taboo energy from him, the heavenly human race elder said. Yes, great dream lord of heaven, and the others replied. Then they stood around Lu Ming, and the power of the heavens emanated from their bodies. The array formation in the secret chamber was activated and emitted a dazzling light. Lu Ming was enveloped by the light. The elder of the heavenly human tribe let out a soft cry as he quickly formed a series of hand seals. A mysterious force fell on Lu Ming's body. At the same time, several other powerful beings at the level of the Lord of Heaven also made their moves. Together with the heavenly human tribe elder, the power exerted on Lu Ming's body became even stronger. Lu Ming's body suddenly trembled violently. His bones were trembling and his muscles were wriggling. All the cells in his body seemed to be about to fly out. The elder of the heavenly human tribe and the others wanted to extract the taboo energy from his body. Don't even think about it. Lu Ming roared in his heart. He used all his strength to control the taboo energy and resist with all his might. Kid, how dare you resist? You're courting death. One of the Lord of Heaven shouted angrily, causing Lu Ming's eardrums to explode. If you want to kill me, then kill me. There's no need to talk so much. Lu Ming replied coldly. Kid, you, that Lord of Heaven glared at him angrily. There's no need to talk nonsense with him. Focus on extracting the taboo energy, the elder of the heavenly human tribe said. He increased his strength and used all his strength to extract the taboo energy from Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body trembled even more violently. His cells were trembling, and the taboo energy in every cell was also trembling. It was as if a powerful force was pulling it out. However, Lu Ming resisted with all his strength. He focused all his strength to stabilize the taboo energy. He knew very well that his greatest value was the taboo energy. With the taboo energy he might still be able to survive. However, once the taboo energy was extracted he would lose his value. Then only death would await him. No matter what, he would not let the other party extract the taboo energy. Under this tug, his body was under a great burden. His skin cracked and blood kept flowing out. His muscles were also torn apart, and his bones crackled with explosive sounds. Fine cracks appeared all over his body. Every part of his body felt like it was being cut by a knife. No, it was 100 times or 1,000 times more intense than that. However, Lu Ming withstood it. This bit of pain was nothing. He ignored the injuries on his body and tried his best to control the taboo energy to prevent the other party from extracting it. As time passed, the injuries on his body became more and more serious. Soon he was covered in blood. There was not a single spot on his body that was unharmed. After a while, his body was on the verge of collapse. If this continued, he would definitely die. Stop. At this moment, the elder of the heavenly human tribe shouted softly and stopped first. After that, the other Lord of Heaven also stopped. This kid, the elder of the heavenly human tribe's eyes flickered with a cold light. He did not expect that Lu Ming's willpower would be so strong at such a young age. Under such great pain he could still stabilize the taboo energy. The taboo energy was not an ordinary energy. If it was an ordinary energy, any divine master would be able to extract it from Lu Ming's body without him doing anything. However, the taboo energy was extraordinary. The taboo energy had already fused with every cell in Lu Ming's body. It was very difficult to extract it. If they wanted to extract it, they would have to seep it into the 60 trillion cells in Lu Ming's body. It was too difficult. Even with the cultivation of the elder of the heavenly human tribe, He needed to cooperate with a special formation and the help of the other Lord of Heaven to be able to take action. However, it was not that easy. There was a prerequisite. Lu Ming's resistance must not be too strong. If Lu Ming's resistance was too strong, it would be difficult to succeed. Just like just now, if Lu Ming resisted with all his strength, it would be difficult for them to succeed. If this continued, Lu Ming's body would collapse and he would die. The taboo energy was very special. If Lu Ming died, the taboo energy would also dissipate. This was also the reason why they did not kill Lu Ming. It was also the reason why they suddenly stopped. If they killed Lu Ming, they would not be able to get the taboo energy. They had a special use for the taboo energy. Kid, you'd better cooperate. You'll suffer less pain. Otherwise, you'll suffer a fate worse than death. You've tasted the pain just now. If you cooperate, it will end sooner. The elder of the heavenly human tribe said coldly. Cut the crap. If you want to fight, then continue. Lu Ming replied coldly. Under the effect of the taboo energy, his injuries were recovering at an astonishing speed. As he spoke, the wounds on the surface of his body were about to disappear. Stubborn. Let's see how long you can last. The elder of the heavenly human tribe said coldly, his eyes flashing with killing intent. A junior dared to talk to him like this. If it were not for the taboo energy in Lu Ming's body, he would have slapped Lu Ming to death. Chapter 42:27. After a while, when Lu Ming's injuries were almost healed, the old man from the heavenly human tribe and the others began to move again. They activated the formation to extract the forbidden power from Lu Ming's body. However, Lu Ming resisted with all his might. No matter what, he would not let them extract the forbidden power. Both sides were in a stalemate. Not long after, Lu Ming's body was on the verge of collapse. His body was tattered and he was in great pain. However, Lu Ming had experienced all kinds of pain along the way. This pain was nothing. Lu Ming did not even make a sound. The old man from the heavenly human tribe and the others had no choice but to stop. This was because if they continued, Lu Ming's body would completely collapse and he would die on the spot. The forbidden power would also disappear. After Lu Ming's injuries were healed, they continued to attack him. This went on for several times. It was a pity that Lu Ming withstood it every time. This made the old man from the heavenly human tribe and the others' faces become extremely gloomy. They did not expect that Lu Ming's willpower would be so strong at such a young age. An ordinary person would not be able to withstand such continuous pain. This kid. Old ancestor, what should we do now? One of the Lord of Heaven said. Facing such a Lu Ming, even the Lord of Heaven who had lived for countless years was furious. He could not kill him, but he could not let him go either. He was too difficult to deal with. Put him in the 1,000 flames furnace. Let's see how long he can last. The old man from the heavenly human tribe said coldly. All right, old ancestor is wise. The other Lord of Heaven revealed a look of joy. Then they looked at Lu Ming coldly. Brat, it is best that you quickly yield and cooperate with us to extract the taboo energy. That way you will be able to suffer less. Otherwise, you will have to suffer in the 10,000 flame furnace. The pain of being burned by 10,000 flames will be 10 times or even 100 times worse than before. One of the Lord of Heaven said coldly. Do as you wish. You want me to cooperate with you to extract the forbidden power? Impossible. Lu Ming said indifferently. You're courting death. The Lord of Heaven was so angry that he glared. There's no need to talk nonsense with him. Let's enter the 10,000 flames furnace. The heavenly human tribe elder waved his hand, grabbed Lu Ming and left this place. Not long after, they came to another secret room. There was a huge furnace here. Standing outside, they could feel the terrifying temperature inside the furnace. With a loud bang, the heavenly human tribe elder tossed Lu Ming into the 10,000 flames furnace. The flames of the 10,000 flames furnace will not burn a person to death. It will only burn slowly. However, the pain it brings is 10 times or even 100 times that of ordinary flames. Let's see how long this kid can last. The heavenly human elder said coldly. Old ancestor is wise. Using the 10,000 flames furnace to refine this brat, his mind will quickly collapse. At that time, he will naturally obediently beg for mercy, and we can easily extract the taboo energy. One of the Lord of Heaven bowed and said. His flattery was obvious. That's right. The 10,000 flames furnace is no small matter. In history, not many people have been able to last for more than 7 days. I guess this brat will be able to last for 3 days at most. Another Lord of Heaven said. Well, from the previous situation, this brat's mind is very tenacious and his willpower is very strong. I think 3 days is more than enough, but at most 5 days. The heavenly human tribe elder made a judgment. Old ancestor is wise. The Lord of Heaven flattered him again. They quietly waited for Lu Ming to surrender. Time passed day by day. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Soon 4 days had passed and it was close to 5 days. However, there was still no movement in the 10,000 flames furnace. There was also no sound of Lu Ming begging for mercy. The faces of the heavenly human tribe elder and the others were a little ugly. The heavenly human tribe elder was confident that Lu Ming would be able to last for 5 days at most before begging for mercy. However, it was close to 5 days now and Lu Ming still hadn't begged for mercy. This made him a little embarrassed. If they didn't know very well that the 10,000 flames furnace wouldn't burn Lu Ming to death, they would have thought that Lu Ming had died in it. They continued to wait. Soon 5 days passed, then 6 days, 7 days, in the blink of an eye 7 days had passed. They had previously said that very few people could last for more than 7 days in the 10,000 flames furnace. But now Lu Ming had surpassed. This made their faces even uglier. Lu Ming's willpower was beyond their imagination. The heavenly human tribe elder's face was even more embarrassed. Let's see how long this brat can last. One of the Lord of Heaven gritted his teeth and said. They continued to wait. 8 days, 9 days, 10 days. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had stayed in the 10,000 flames furnace for a whole month. Yes, Lu Ming hadn't said a word for a whole month. Brat, are you going to give in or not? Even with the wisdom of the heavenly human tribe elder, he couldn't help but take the initiative to ask. What do you mean by giving in? It's very comfortable and warm inside. Don't let me out. I still want to stay a little longer. Lu Ming's disdainful voice sounded from the 10,000 flames furnace. Crack. The heavenly human tribe elder and the others clenched their fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. They almost went berserk. Infuriating. It was really too infuriating. It's very comfortable to stay in the 10,000 flames furnace? Do you think we're uneducated and want to lie to us? This brat. The heavenly human tribe elder and the others were furious. They felt that Lu Ming was like a hedgehog that they couldn't bite. Ancestor, what should we do now? One of the Lord of Heaven asked. This brat's willpower is more tenacious than I expected. The 10,000 flames furnace is probably useless. How about this? We'll throw him into the heavenly prison. The heavenly prison is filled with terrifying inner demon fire. In the heavenly prison, he will be tortured by the inner demon fire at all times. Anyway, we're not in a hurry. Let's see how long he can last in a few stellar years. The heavenly human tribe elder said coldly. That's the only way. Then let this brat stay in the heavenly prison. Ancestor, go back and rest. Leave the rest to us. One of the Lord of Heaven said. Okay. The heavenly human tribe elder nodded and stepped out of the secret chamber. Several Lord of Heaven pulled Lu Ming out of the 10,000 flames furnace. Brat, you'll suffer less if you give in early. You have to understand that in the heavenly palace, it's useless no matter how hard you try. We have plenty of ways to make you give in. If you insist, you'll only suffer more. One of the Lord of Heaven said. Oh, is that so? I'll wait. Lu Ming replied indifferently. No matter what, he would not let them take away the forbidden power. Several Lord of Heaven snorted coldly and brought Lu Ming out of the secret chamber. After a while they arrived at another place. There was a huge whirlpool there. It was dark and kept spinning. No one knew where it led to. Brat, this is the heavenly prison of the heavenly palace. It's filled with inner demon fire at all times. You'll be tortured in there. You can last for a month or two, but can you last for a year or two? 10,000 years, a million years, or even 10 million years? One of the Lord of Heaven said coldly. He wanted to scare Lu Ming, hoping to destroy Lu Ming's mind as soon as possible. Chapter 42:28. However, Lu Ming's expression remained calm. In addition, it is a place where the heavenly palace imprisons criminals. These criminals are all extremely vicious and evil. Moreover, they have been tormented by the heart flame demon fire for many years in the heavenly prison. They have long gone mad. You will face danger at all times in there. You had better consider carefully to avoid unnecessary torture. Another Lord of Heaven added. So much nonsense. I didn't know that the heavenly palace Lord of Heaven has so much nonsense to say. You're so wishy-washy and not straightforward at all. Lu Ming mocked. This kid. Several Lord of Heaven gritted their teeth in anger. In the primitive universe, who dared to talk to them like this? If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't kill Lu Ming, they would have ground Lu Ming's bones into ashes. Kid, take this jade talisman. If you've thought it through, you can send us a message. We'll bring you out. One Lord of Heaven said. A jade talisman flew into Lu Ming's body and disappeared. Their main purpose was to destroy Lu Ming's psychological defense and wear down Lu Ming's willpower so that Lu Ming would cooperate with them and let them extract the forbidden power. They didn't want Lu Ming to die in the heavenly prison. That was why they sent Lu Ming a message jade talisman. As long as Lu Ming sent them a message, it meant that Lu Ming had given in. Lu Ming's expression was calm. He didn't say anything. Send him in. One Lord of Heaven said. Then he waved his hand. Lu Ming's body flew into the whirlpool and disappeared into it. As soon as Lu Ming rushed into the whirlpool, he seemed to be following a passage. Not long after, he left the passage and crashed into the ground. Lu Ming hurriedly channeled the forbidden power to slow down his speed and landed gently on the ground. Then he raised his eyes and looked around. He realized that he was in a desolate mountain. In the mountain there was a type of black tree that was twisted like a snake. It looked very terrifying. The sky was dark and gloomy. There was no sun or moon in the sky. The entire sky looked dark red. Is this the heart flame devil fire? Lu Ming sensed carefully and found that there was a kind of flame constantly spreading out from the ground. This kind of flame was everywhere in this world. As long as one was in this world, they would be contaminated. This kind of flame enveloped Lu Ming and climbed up Lu Ming's body, constantly burning. The flames were not fierce, but when they burned, there was a kind of heart-wrenching pain. This kind of pain was very easy for Lu Ming to bear. However, it was hard to say if he was locked up here forever. He could endure it for a short period of time, but that didn't mean he could endure it for a long time. This was the heavenly prison. Some people were locked up here for millions of years, tens of millions of years, or even many stellar years. After so many years, no matter how tough a person's mind was, they would not be able to bear it. Lu Ming understood that the heavenly palace wanted to lock him up here. As long as he did not give in, they would keep him here until he gave in. This kind of pain is nothing. Lu Ming sneered. With a thought, every cell in his body trembled slightly. A powerful forbidden power covered his entire body, blocking the flames outside. The pain on Lu Ming's body disappeared instantly. That blocked? So easy? Lu Ming was puzzled. This was too easy, beyond his expectations. Logically speaking, the Lord of Heaven and the others in the heavenly palace should know that he controlled the forbidden power. They should also know the mysteries of the forbidden power. Whether it could block the flames here, they should also know very well. If the forbidden power could block it, why did they send Lu Ming here? Lu Ming frowned. For a moment he could not figure it out. He felt that there must be something he did not understand. After a while, Lu Ming shook his head. Since he could not figure it out, he would not think about it for the time being. Lu Ming began to look around. He spread out his spiritual sense, but his aura was restrained. According to the Lord of Heaven, this was the heavenly palace's heavenly prison. It was a place to imprison serious criminals. There must be a lot of serious criminals. These people had been locked up here for who knew how long and were tortured at all times. They would probably go crazy. He had to be careful. However, Lu Ming looked around and found no one. There's no one around. Could it be that the area I'm in is relatively remote? Well, I can cultivate and improve my strength. Lu Ming thought. In this kind of environment, the stronger one was, the more power they had to protect themselves. Unfortunately, he had given all his treasures to the bone demon. He did not bring them with him. His strength was greatly affected. For example, the Gale Bead, the Ice Mystic Rod, and even the ancient origin character, Battle, were given to the bone demon. Without the word battle, his battle strength could not burst out to fight across level 9. He was still a little short. Anyway, I can resist this kind of flame. I'll cultivate here for a while. I still have a lot of ordinary secret techniques that I haven't cultivated. I'll first turn these ordinary secret techniques into secret technique runes and integrate them into my cells to enhance my strength. Lu Ming made up his mind. He still had at least 15,000 types of ordinary secret skills that he had yet to cultivate. He planned to raise his strength to the point where he could fight across level 9. Even if he did not use the battle formula, he would still need to reach the point where he could fight across level 9. Anyway, he did not know how long he would be locked up. He could just cultivate slowly. Immediately, Lu Ming found a relatively hidden cave and entered it. Then he punched out and destroyed the surroundings of the cave, blocking the entrance. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the cave and began to comprehend an ordinary secret technique. When Lu Ming began to comprehend the ordinary secret technique, a spot in his sea of consciousness glowed. Then the primordial god stone reappeared. The primordial god stone emitted a mysterious light that could speed up Lu Ming's comprehension of the secret technique. The primordial god stone has reappeared. What about the purple copper coffin? Lu Ming was surprised. Then he carefully sensed it. The next moment, another wave of fluctuation appeared in his sea of consciousness. The purple copper coffin reappeared. Lu Ming's face lit up with joy. Previously, when the experts from the Heavenly Palace captured him, they naturally searched him from head to toe, including his sea of consciousness. However, at that time, the primordial god stone and the purple copper coffin were hidden to the extreme. They actually escaped the detection of the elder from the heavenly human tribe. The elder from the heavenly human tribe was an existence that surpassed the divine master realm. Even he could not detect them. This showed how mysterious the primordial god stone and the purple copper coffin were. At this time Lu Ming sensed them on his own. They reappeared. This made Lu Ming more or less confident. At least the purple copper coffin was still there. At the critical moment he could still use it to fight for his life. Previously, in the primitive divine lake world, Lu Ming was completely controlled by the heavenly soldier armor. He could not move at all. He could not even take out the purple copper coffin. Now, if the Lord of Heaven comes again, I will take out the purple copper coffin and fight for my life, Lu Ming muttered. Then he continued to comprehend the secret technique. Chapter 42-29. With Lu Ming's current realm, the speed of comprehending ordinary secret techniques was very fast. With the help of the ancient secret techniques, the speed was even more astonishing. Even without the help of the primordial divine sound, the speed was very fast. In almost less than an hour, Lu Ming could successfully comprehend an ordinary secret technique, turn it into a secret technique rune, and integrate it into his cells. In one day, Lu Ming could successfully comprehend more than 20 secret techniques. Of course, they were only at the entry level. He did not need to cultivate to a high realm first. He only needed to enter the entry level. In 1 year he could comprehend more than 7,000 secret techniques. In just a little more than 2 years, Lu Ming had successfully comprehended all the secret techniques in his hands, turned them into secret technique runes, and integrated them into his cells. After integrating so many secret technique runes at once, the power of the taboo power was further enhanced. Lu Ming felt that he was full of powerful energy. His battle strength had undoubtedly increased by another level. Lu Ming estimated that even if he did not use the ancient character battle now, he would probably reach the ability to fight across 9 levels. Even if he was still a little short, it would not be by much. Lu Ming estimated that after comprehending 1 or 2,000 ordinary secret techniques to great accomplishment, his battle strength would completely reach the ability to fight across 9 levels even without the battle secret technique. Then he would continue to comprehend and cultivate until he could not improve anymore. Time passed quickly. Year after year passed by. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had cultivated here for 30 years. In 30 years, Lu Ming had cultivated another 2,000 types of ordinary secret skills to the phenomenal success stage. In this way, his battle strength had completely reached the level where he could fight across 9 levels. If he continued to cultivate, his battle strength would not improve anymore. 9 levels was the limit. However, recently Lu Ming discovered an important problem. His heart was becoming more and more restless, and he was becoming more and more impatient. Sometimes he would inexplicably want to get angry, and he felt that it was becoming more and more difficult to remain calm. In this way, the speed of comprehending secret techniques became slower and slower, and the effect was getting worse and worse. What's going on? Lu Ming frowned and pondered. At his current level, if he wanted to achieve mental tranquility, it would only take an instant. In the past, he could instantly enter a state of tranquility and emptiness, which was the same as entering a state of cultivation. But now it was getting harder and harder to do so. She was easily irritated and wanted to vent her anger for no reason. She even wanted to find someone to vent her anger on. Heart flame devil fire. Could it be that this kind of flame targets not only the physical body but also the mind and soul? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Thinking of this point, he felt that it was very possible. His physical body could resist the attack with the taboo power. As for his soul, it was scattered in every cell. He could also use the forbidden power to resist it, but he had his own thoughts and thoughts. As long as one had thoughts and thoughts, they would be affected. That should be the case. That's why the people of the Heavenly Palace let me in despite knowing that I have the forbidden power and can block it. That's because other than the physical body, the spirit will also be attacked and affected. Thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. One could imagine that this was only the beginning. The further he progressed, the greater the impact would be. Could it be that I can't get out of the Heavenly Palace's prison? Lu Ming raised his head and looked at the sky. He came down from the sky, but there was no exit in the sky. If I want to get out, I can't just stay here. I need to find an opportunity to get out. Lu Ming thought to himself. Although he knew that this was the Heavenly Palace's prison and the chances of him getting out were very slim, he still had to try. He ended his cultivation and left the cave. He randomly chose a direction and flew in that direction. The Heavenly Palace's prison was like a huge world. Lu Ming flew high in the sky and looked into the distance. He couldn't see the end of it at all. He could only see the vast and boundless land. This world was the same everywhere. On the ground, the heart flame devil fire was constantly spreading out. The entire world was shrouded in high temperature. No living creatures could be seen. Only some strange dark trees could be seen. This was a real prison. Half an hour later, Lu Ming, who was flying, suddenly stopped. Because he suddenly felt a sense of danger. His body couldn't help but tense up. The danger came from underground. Without hesitation, Lu Ming's figure suddenly rose and then moved back horizontally. Boom. The ground exploded. A figure rushed toward Lu Ming at an extremely fast speed. Before the person arrived, the sky was filled with the sound of breaking wings. It was a claw light that tore through the void and grabbed at Lu Ming. The speed was amazing. The power was also amazing. Fortunately, Lu Ming reacted quickly and dodged in time. That was how he managed to avoid the attack. Lu Ming retreated a few hundred miles. His eyes flashed like lightning. He finally saw the appearance of the person who attacked him. It was a short man. He was short less than 1.5 meters. His back was hunched. However, his hands were covered with sharp nails. They were like extremely sharp blades. His eyes were blood red. He stared at Lu Ming. Blood, blood, I want to drink blood. The short man roared like a wild beast. He licked his lips and his skinny body flickered. He moved like lightning towards Lu Ming. His speed was astonishing. As soon as he arrived, Lu Ming sensed a terrifying strength moving towards him. His skin felt like it was being cut. Fourth Great Supreme God Layer. Lu Ming's heart stirred, revealing a grave expression. That short man had the strength of the Fourth Great Supreme God Layer. Even if he only had the strength of the Fourth Great Supreme God Layer, Lu Ming couldn't compete with him. Even though Lu Ming had recovered his strength, he still had the strength of the Ninth Godly Emperor Layer. It would be very difficult for him to fight against an ordinary cultivator of the Third Great Supreme God Layer. If he had the mysterious ice rod, he would be able to fight against an ordinary cultivator of the Fourth Great Supreme God Layer. Unfortunately, he didn't have any weapons. He could only rely on himself. He couldn't compete with that short man. If he fought him head-on, he would be killed in a flash. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming retreated rapidly. Blood, I want to drink blood, stay here. The short man roared and chased after Lu Ming in a frenzy. He clawed continuously and his sharp claw gleams cut through the space, grabbing at Lu Ming. His speed was astonishing, faster than Lu Ming's retreating speed. Great Aurora Technique. Lu Ming used the Great Aurora Technique. His body turned into a beam of light. In the blink of an eye, he was already a few thousand li away, dodging the attack. Master, we don't have any enmity between us. Why are you attacking me? Shouted Lu Ming. But the short man didn't give up. He continued moving towards Lu Ming. His claws filled the sky, covering hundreds of li. Chapter 42:30. The short man's eyes were bloodshot and filled with bloodthirsty killing intent. He charged madly at Lu Ming. Claw lights tore through the air and enveloped a large area. Greater Teleportation Art. With a thought, Lu Ming executed the Greater Teleportation Art. His figure appeared in the distance, dodging the claw attacks. Then he quickly flew in a certain direction. Since he was no match for the short man, it was naturally best to escape. However, the short man did not give up. He chased after Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. Even if Lu Ming had the Greater Teleportation Art and the Greater Aurora Art, he could not shake off the short man. The main reason was that his cultivation was too weak. The two of them, one chasing the other, flew several million li in the blink of an eye. The short man kept attacking as he chased. Although Lu Ming dodged most of the attacks, there was one claw light that he did not manage to dodge. Fortunately, Lu Ming fully operated the greater defensive art and blocked the claw light. He only suffered some light injuries. I have to shake this guy off as soon as possible. This guy's condition is a little abnormal. Lu Ming's mind kept flashing. The short man's mental state was clearly abnormal. He was filled with bloodthirsty intent. Lu Ming guessed that the short man was affected by the heart flame. The heart flame and devil flame burned the body, while the heart flame affected the soul, spirit, and so on. Lu Ming had only stayed here for a few decades and his mind was already affected. The short man had stayed here for who knew how many years. The negative emotions in his heart would erupt crazily. There was no way to reason with this kind of person. He could only stay away. Boom. Boom. Suddenly Lu Ming, who was flying, narrowed his eyes. There was a violent roar in front of him. There were violent vibrations in the air and on the ground. Waves of powerful force swept in all directions like sea waves. Kill, kill, kill. Roars filled with madness and hysteria could be heard coming from the front. Then Lu Ming saw a figure floating in the air, constantly attacking. Yes, there was only one figure. It was an old man with disheveled hair and shocking killing intent. His eyes were filled with madness and nothing else. He was constantly attacking. His attacks had no target and they blasted large pits in the ground. Lunatic, this is a lunatic. Lu Ming instantly came to a conclusion. He was a complete lunatic, even crazier than the short man. Although the short man was crazy and his eyes were filled with bloodlust, if one looked carefully, one could see a trace of rationality in his eyes. However, the disheveled old man before him no longer possessed the slightest bit of rationality. Only madness remained. Not good, avoid this person. Lu Ming's dashing figure came to a halt. Meng Ran changed his direction and flew to the left. The short man who was chasing after Lu Ming also noticed the disheveled old man. His speed suddenly decreased. At this moment, the crazy old man also noticed Lu Ming and the short man. Kill, kill, kill. When the disheveled old man saw Lu Ming and the short man, it seemed like he had found a target. He became even crazier. He raised his head to the sky and roared. Then he charged towards Lu Ming and the short man. When he was still far away from them, the old man started attacking. A few palm prints blasted toward Lu Ming and the short man as if they could topple mountains and overturn seas. The power was extremely terrifying. What terrifying strength. He's definitely at the 5th Great Supreme God layer. No, he's not only at the 5th Great Supreme God layer, he's at least at the 6th. Lu Ming was terrified. He wanted to use the greater teleportation technique to escape, but the palm strikes were oppressing him. The space around him was extremely chaotic. Using the greater teleportation technique was extremely difficult. Now it was too late. He couldn't use the greater teleportation technique anymore. So Lu Ming used the great aurora technique and turned into an aurora. In a flash he was already 10,000 li away. Boom boom boom. A palm print crushed the place where Lu Ming had been standing earlier. Everywhere it passed, the void collapsed and the mountain peak on the ground exploded. A gully that was tens of thousands of miles long appeared. That place was the prison of the Heavenly Palace. Of course it was extremely sturdy. It wasn't like the primitive universe. Otherwise, that palm strike wouldn't have just created a ravine, it would have destroyed the earth and sky. The prison of the Heavenly Palace couldn't be destroyed so easily. Otherwise, how could it keep so many ferocious and powerful prisoners? How could it keep those prisoners forever? On the other side, the short man's eyes were also filled with fear. He turned around and fled, avoiding the attack of the palm print. The short man's mental state was better than the others. He still had some rationality left. He knew he was scared and that he couldn't defeat the old man. Die, die, die. The old man with disheveled hair kept roaring. His body emitted a violent aura as if he wanted to destroy everything. He directly rushed towards the short man. His speed was extremely shocking. It was obvious that he was much faster than the short man. Lu Ming was delighted. The old man with disheveled hair chased after the short man. It was likely that the short man's cultivation was higher. He instinctively chased after the old man. This gave Lu Ming a chance. Lu Ming chose the opposite direction of the short man and used the greater teleportation technique to leave. He prayed that the short man could hold on for a while longer. However, Lu Ming's prayer didn't come true. In just a few breaths, he heard a shrill scream that spread hundreds of thousands of li away. He was killed so quickly. Lu Ming's heart sank. He burst out with all his strength and pushed the greater teleportation technique to the extreme. However, it didn't take long for a violent roar to come from behind him. Die, die, die. The words die made the air shake. A violent qi rushed towards Lu Ming from behind. The old man with disheveled hair appeared again. He was tens of thousands of li away from Lu Ming. He was rapidly approaching Lu Ming. He killed that guy so quickly. How terrifying. Lu Ming looked grave. That old man with disheveled hair was really terrifying. He was definitely above the fifth great supreme god layer. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to catch up with the short man and kill him so quickly. He had to be at least of the sixth great supreme god layer. If he caught up with Lu Ming would definitely die. Lu Ming kept using the greater teleportation technique. Each time he moved tens of thousands of li away. However, even with his incredible speed, he still couldn't get rid of the old man. The distance between the two of them was getting shorter and shorter. I'm in trouble. If it doesn't work, I'll have to use the copper coffin to try. A thought flashed across Lu Ming's mind. However, at that moment the situation changed. Roar, roar, roar. Ferocious beasts suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Lu Ming scanned the area with his spiritual awareness and discovered that there were more than 10 ferocious beasts. Those beasts were extremely strong and their qi and blood were boiling. Chapter 42-31. The sudden appearance of more than a dozen ferocious beasts with vigorous vitality immediately attracted the attention of the disheveled old man. The disheveled old man had clearly gone completely crazy. His attention was completely focused on the vitality. He would be attracted to those with strong vitality and strength. Previously, the short man was stronger than Lu Ming, so the disheveled old man was the first to chase after him. Now, the dozen or so ferocious beasts were also very powerful. They were like furnaces that immediately attracted the disheveled old man's attention. Kill? The disheveled old man roared. He struck out with his palm and blasted a ferocious beast into a bloody mist. The other ferocious beasts turned around and ran in all directions. The disheveled old man roared and chased after them. This is a good chance. Lu Ming didn't expect to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Suddenly, more than a dozen abnormally powerful ferocious beasts appeared here. He found it strange because this was the Heavenly Palace's heavenly prison. It was filled with heart flame and devil fire. Other than the creatures imprisoned here, there were no other living beings. At least, Lu Ming hadn't seen any other living beings after flying for so long. Other than the disheveled old man and the short man, he hadn't seen any other living beings. It was very strange that more than a dozen ferocious beasts with powerful vitality suddenly appeared here. However, now wasn't the time to think about it. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and shifted in one direction several times. Young friend, come with me. After Lu Ming shifted a few times, he suddenly heard a voice by his ear. Lu Ming was startled. He looked in that direction and saw a skinny middle-aged man on a mountain peak. This middle-aged man was waving at Lu Ming. Lu Ming instinctively raised his guard. However, Lu Ming noticed that the middle-aged man's eyes were very calm. There was no madness in them. This was very different from the disheveled old man and the short man he had encountered before. Young friend, come with me. I was the one who released those ferocious beasts. They won't be able to hold them off for long. They will catch up soon. I have a safe place where we can avoid their pursuit. The skinny middle-aged man continued speaking with sincerity. So those ferocious beasts were released by this person. No wonder ferocious beasts would suddenly appear here. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. After a few thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Ming flew towards the other party. Lu Ming had considered his decision to fly towards the other party. The other party was right. Although the dozen or so beasts had powerful blood and qi, their strength was only average. They definitely wouldn't be able to stop the disheveled old man's pursuit. It wouldn't be long before the old man caught up again. If this continued, it would be difficult for him to escape. On the other hand, this skinny middle-aged man looked relatively normal and didn't go crazy. If they followed him, they might be able to escape. The most important thing now was to shake off that crazy old man with disheveled hair. Come follow me. I've set up some interference formations in this area. That guy has already gone crazy, so it'll be easy to trick him. The skinny middle-aged man said as he led Lu Ming in a certain direction. He didn't seem to have any ill intentions. Of course, Lu Ming would not let down his guard so easily. Although he left with the other party, he was always on guard. Not long after, they passed through a dense forest. Lu Ming found traces of formations in the forest as expected. The formations weren't brilliant and were easy to discover. However, it shouldn't be a problem to use them to confuse the old man with disheveled hair because the other party had already gone crazy and lost his mind. After passing through the forest, they walked for a distance and passed through several places with formations. Then they came to a canyon. Alright, it's safe here. That guy definitely won't chase us. My name is Ronggung. How should I address you, little friend? The skinny middle-aged man smiled. Mu Yun. Thank you for saving me this time, senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, Hey, don't be so polite. This is the Heavenly Palace's prison. We were all imprisoned here by the Heavenly Palace. The Heavenly Palace is our common enemy. It's only right that we help each other. Ronggung smiled. He was very amiable and gave people a feeling of being approachable. By the way, little friend Mu Yun, I've never seen you in this area before. Did you come from another area or just enter this prison? Ronggung asked. I just got here not long ago. There are many things I don't understand. Senior, please enlighten me. Lu Ming said. You're welcome. Come, let's sit down. We'll talk while we eat. Ronggung waved his hand. A stone table and several stone stools appeared in the valley. There were also several jars of wine on the table. Haha, I used some special means to bribe the heavenly soldiers of the Heavenly Palace to get them here. There aren't many left. Please. Ronggung pushed a jar of wine to Lu Ming and took one for himself. He opened the lid and immediately, a strong aroma of wine spread out. Ronggung picked up the jar and gulped down several mouthfuls. He heaved a sigh of satisfaction. Lu Ming thought for a moment. Then he picked up the jar and drank as well. Then he sat down on the stool. Senior Ronggung, what's with those beasts? Are they your pets? Lu Ming asked. No, they're not. Ronggung shook his head and said, Those are puppets I refined from the essence blood of desolate beasts that I collected in the past. Because they were refined from the essence blood of desolate beasts, although their vitality is strong, their combat strength isn't strong. They'll probably be killed by that old fellow very soon. Senior, I'm sorry that you suffered such a great loss. Lu Ming said with a grateful expression on his face. Like I said before, the Heavenly Palace is our common enemy. It's only right that we help each other. Ronggung smiled again. But Brother Mu Yun, this is your first time here. You must be careful. The inner flames here are horrifying. Ronggung's eyes were extremely solemn. Senior, please enlighten me. Lu Ming said. The inner flames are everywhere in this prison. This kind of inner flames is horrifying. They can burn the body, the soul, and the mind all the time. The physical pain is easy to endure, but the mental pain is hard to withstand. The longer you stay in the imperial prison, the greater the influence of the heart flame and the more negative emotions you have in your heart will erupt. Some people will go crazy when they can't handle it. Therefore, most of the creatures in the prison will become horrifying because of the outburst of negative emotions. For example, some people are bloodthirsty, some are murderous, some like to torture others, and some like to devour other creatures. These people can only vent their emotions in certain ways. For example, those who are bloodthirsty will kill other creatures to drink their blood. Those who are bloodthirsty will torture other creatures to vent their emotions. That way they can relieve their pain. Worst of all, they will lose control of their minds and fall into madness just like the old man you met before. Ronggung explained. Chapter 42-32. Ronggung's words made Lu Ming's expression turn even more solemn. This heavenly prison was indeed very terrifying. The people who stayed here were simply being tortured at all times. It wasn't just physical torture but also mental torture. Everyone's mental state had a weakness. The longer one stayed here, the more this weakness would be magnified. It was a kind of pain to anyone. Some people would choose special methods to vent, such as bloodthirsty, killing people, etc. Those who couldn't bear it would fall into madness. The Heavenly Palace uses such methods to torture us. Many people couldn't bear it and would submit to the Heavenly Palace, becoming the Heavenly Palace's tool. Ronggung sighed. Could it be that there's no way to resist the heart devil fire? Or is there no way to escape from this heavenly prison? Lu Ming asked. There is. Ronggung nodded and said, I've heard that there are people who can resist the attack of the heart devil fire in the heavenly prison. As for escaping, it's impossible. As far as I know, no one has ever escaped from the heavenly prison unless they submit to the Heavenly Palace and the Heavenly Palace takes the initiative to release them. Otherwise, they can only stay in the heavenly prison forever. However, submitting to the Heavenly Palace isn't that easy. Some people even submit to the Heavenly Palace, but the Heavenly Palace is too lazy to agree. Can't we leave? Lu Ming frowned. Little friend Mu Yun, come, let's drink. We can cooperate later. Perhaps we can find a way to resist the heart devil fire. Rong Gung said and continued to drink with Lu Ming. The two of them drank and chatted. Lu Ming asked about the heavenly prison again. After a while. Suddenly, Lu Ming's expression changed. He staggered and sat on the ground with a pale face. What's going on? Why do I feel weak all over? Am I poisoned? There's poison in your wine. Lu Ming bellowed and glared at Rong Gung. Haha, finally acting up? Rong Gung suddenly laughed wildly. At this moment, his eyes were no longer calm. Instead, they revealed a ferocious look as he stared at Lu Ming as if he was looking at his prey. The wine is poisoned? How could it be? I checked it before I drank it. Lu Ming roared. Ha ha ha, let me tell you, the wine is not poisonous, but this wine has been specially refined by me. A special herb has been added in it, so it is not poisonous. However, once it is mixed with a special smell in this valley, it will produce a strong poison. Even a peak divine emperor will die from it. That's why you can't feel anything wrong with the wine. Rong Gung chuckled coldly and explained. What? Why did you save me first and then poison me? Lu Ming asked with an extremely puzzled and unwilling expression. Once you've been poisoned by my poison, you won't die immediately. You'll die slowly and your body will rot away. The process will be incomparably painful. Don't you think that it's very satisfying to see others poisoned and dying painfully in front of you? Ah! Rong Gung laughed as he spoke. The craziness in his eyes intensified. Amidst the craziness, there was also a strong sense of excitement. Lu Ming understood that Rong Gung was no different from the short man he met previously. He was also affected by the heart devil fire. His negative emotions erupted and he became crazy and perverted. While others were bloodthirsty, Rong Gung liked to see others poisoned by him and die painfully in front of him. This way he would be satisfied. Therefore he saved Lu Ming so that Lu Ming would lower his guard and be poisoned by him. In an instant, Lu Ming understood everything. The heavenly prison of the heavenly palace was indeed very dangerous because it was filled with a group of crazy people who erupted with negative emotions. Looking at Lu Ming's pale face, Rong Gung felt an inexplicable sense of pleasure. It was as if some kind of violent emotion in his heart had been released. Kid, you don't have to think about using your martial arts to expel the poison. My poison can't be expelled. Once you're poisoned, there's only one outcome, which is to die slowly from poisoning. You're only feeling weak now. Soon your body will fester and your bones will be corroded. You'll die in extreme pain. Ah! The more excited Rong Gung was, the crazier his eyes became. You're in a pitiful state. In my opinion, it's better to send you on your way. Living on is more painful. At this moment, Lu Ming's face suddenly regained its calmness. He looked at Rong Gung with pity. Rong Gung didn't look like he was poisoned at all. He looked normal. His breathing was stable and his complexion was ruddy. It was a world of difference from before. Rong Gung widened his eyes in shock and said in disbelief, You're not poisoned? Wrong. I'm indeed poisoned. However, this poison doesn't work on me. Lu Ming said indifferently. In fact, Lu Ming knew something was wrong when Rong Gung took out the wine. When he took the first sip, he knew that there was poison. However, although the poison was powerful, it didn't work on him at all. Every cell in his body contained forbidden energy. No matter how powerful the poison was, how could it destroy every cell in one go? Obviously, it was impossible. Although the poison was powerful, it could only penetrate into the cells in some important parts of the body. It was much weaker than the prohibition power on the heavenly soldier armor. Lu Ming only needed to circulate his forbidden energy slightly to refine the poison. Lu Ming had pretended to be shocked just now. Boy, how could you refine my poison? How is that possible? Rong Gung roared. His face was even more ferocious. He stared at Lu Ming and continued to roar, Even if you can refine my poison, you'll still die. You're only at the Divine Emperor realm. Kill, puff. As soon as Rong Gung said the word kill, his chest was suddenly pierced by a sword radiance. Rong Gung widened his eyes in disbelief. He didn't even know when Lu Ming had attacked him. Let me tell you, it's called the Great Assassination Technique. Die, said Lu Ming coldly. The sword radiance contained the Great Destruction Technique. Rong Gung gave a horrible shriek and turned into ashes. Even his soul couldn't escape. Actually, Rong Gung wasn't weak. He had the strength of the fourth great supreme god layer. Lu Ming couldn't defeat him in a direct battle. But Rong Gung had thought that Lu Ming was poisoned, so he hadn't prepared any defense against Lu Ming. When he found out that Lu Ming wasn't poisoned, he turned pale with fright and panicked. Lu Ming then used one of the 3,000 ancient secret skills, the Great Assassination Technique, to attack Rongeng's vitals. Then he used the Great Destruction Technique to kill Rongeng. Rongeng thought that everything was under his control, but he didn't know that Lu Ming had already seen through it. He had planned a fierce counterattack. I have to thank you for saving me before. So I'll give you a quick death. You're free now. You don't need to be tortured by negative emotions anymore. Die in peace, whispered Lu Ming. Then he left. Chapter 42-33. After killing Rongeng, Lu Ming left the valley and headed in a certain direction. This time Lu Ming was much more careful. He didn't fly in the air. Instead, he concealed his aura and moved along the ground. If he flew in the air, he would be easily discovered if he encountered any frenzied living beings. Of course, if he didn't want to encounter any of them, it was best to find a secluded place to stay. But that would only be safe for a short period of time. In the long run, it would become more dangerous. This was because Lu Ming wasn't completely immune to the inner flame. The inner flame couldn't affect his body, but it could affect his mind and spirit. In the long run, negative emotions would emerge in his heart, and he might even lose control. That would be a dead end. For example, that old man with disheveled hair who had lost control of himself. If he encountered someone with a weaker cultivation base, he would naturally chase after him. But if he encountered someone with a stronger cultivation base, that old man would be killed without the slightest suspense. Once he lost control, his life would no longer be in his own hands. Lu Ming didn't want to see that happen. Rongeng had said that there was a way to prevent the mind from going out of control. He had to find that way. Besides, if he stayed where he was, he couldn't leave. If he wanted to find a way out of the Heavenly Palace's prison, he had to explore. If he stayed where he was, he definitely couldn't find a way out. Although Rongeng had said that he couldn't leave the Heavenly Palace's prison, how would he know if he didn't try? Soon, another dozen days passed. In these dozen days, Lu Ming encountered no less than 10 living beings. But because Lu Ming was careful, he avoided them from afar and didn't meet them. He discovered that not all of these creatures had lost control and gone mad. In fact, most of them had not lost control and gone mad, but their minds were somewhat abnormal, and their symptoms varied from mild to severe. Lu Ming didn't dare to approach them. He didn't know the details. And several times he saw living beings fighting each other. The living beings here were full of negative emotions. They could easily kill each other when they met. This also proved that the prison was really dangerous. This made Lu Ming even more careful. Another thing that made Lu Ming's heart heavy was that as time passed, he found that his heart was becoming more and more restless. He would often feel inexplicably unhappy and would want to kill someone to vent. Lu Ming knew that his mind was constantly being affected. Although it was still under control, that was because he had only been here for a short period of time. As time passed, the situation would definitely get worse. I have to find a way to defend against the Heart Flame Devil fire. It's a pity that Bone Devil isn't here. Otherwise I could ask him, Lu Ming thought to himself as he stuck close to the ground and continued flying. Another day later, boom. Intense rumbling sounds could be heard from up ahead. Divine light flickered about, indicating that there were people fighting a great battle. Lu Ming's figure flickered as he executed one of the 3,000 ancient secret techniques, the Great Concealment Technique. He hid behind a large rock and merged with the rock as he carefully observed the front. Up ahead, there were 2 living beings engaged in an intense battle. One of them was covered in purple golden scales. The other one had 2 spiraling horns on his head. The 2 of them were fighting intensely. Their energies were surging and the earth was shaking. Fourth Great Supreme God Layer, whispered Lu Ming. The 2 of them were both at the 4th Great Supreme God Layer. They were evenly matched. It was difficult to tell who would win. However, Lu Ming observed carefully. He could see that the 2 of them weren't completely out of control. They were just mentally unstable. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Lu Ming watched for a while and got ready to leave. However, in the next moment, Lu Ming's body stiffened and his pupils shrank. He was about to leave when he stopped. Because a net had suddenly appeared on the ground in front of him. An incomparably gigantic net that covered thousands of miles rushed out from the ground towards the 2 beings that were engaged in a fierce battle. The 2 of them hadn't lost control. They were startled and hastily stopped fighting. Then they flew in 2 different directions trying to escape from the net. However, surprisingly, as they flew, the net became bigger and bigger. No matter how they flew, they couldn't get out of the net's range. In just a few breaths of time, the large net caught the 2 creatures. The large net shrunk, firmly locking the two creatures in place, making it difficult for them to move. After the two of them were caught, a middle-aged man in a red robe appeared in the sky. He raised his hand and the net appeared in his hand. I caught two more. Not bad. The man in the red robe nodded. Then his figure flickered and he disappeared. Lu Ming didn't come out immediately. He waited for a while. When he didn't find anything strange, he released the great concealment technique and flew in a certain direction. However, Lu Ming hadn't flown far when he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. His hair stood on end. He sensed danger. In the next moment, Lu Ming found that a large net had appeared on the ground and was about to envelop him. Lu Ming didn't hesitate to use the greater teleportation technique to leave. However, he was shocked when he used the greater teleportation technique. He found that the space was like a quagmire. It was extremely sticky and stuck to him, making it difficult for him to leave. This huge net had actually affected space. The greater teleportation technique didn't work. Greater Aurora technique. Lu Ming immediately changed to the greater Aurora technique. He turned into an aurora and rushed into the distance. However, when he reappeared, he found that he hadn't escaped the net. He was still in the net. Oh no, this net is not only a treasure. It has also combined with a formation. This area is enveloped in a large formation. Lu Ming soon found something fishy. This area had been set up with a formation. The combination of the large net and the formation was very mysterious. No matter how he flew, he couldn't escape the range of the large net. Lu Ming no longer moved horizontally. Instead, he used the greater Aurora technique and rushed directly into the sky. However, what Lu Ming didn't expect was that as soon as he rushed into the sky, a large net suddenly appeared in the sky and enveloped him. In this way, Lu Ming was equivalent to throwing himself into the net. As soon as he rushed into the large net quickly shrank and entangled Lu Ming tightly like chains. Oh no, I'm in trouble. He found that he was completely locked and tightly entangled. No matter how much forbidden power he used, he couldn't break free. Preconceived notions killed people. Previously, when he saw the two creatures being captured, there was no large net in the sky. That was why he rushed into the sky with all his strength. He didn't expect there to be a large net in the sky. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thrown himself into the net. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.